Chapter 841. The girl who committed the assault looked like a tomboy. She had short hair, and her face was sallow. She looked malnourished and did not know how to dress. Her looks were passable, but she did not have a good temperament. The girl who sat there in a sorry state looked delicate. Her long hair fluttered in the wind, and she looked like a helpless little bird. She looked so helpless in her panic that one could not help but want to protect her. "Are you crazy?" The boy stood up immediately and hurriedly helped the long-haired girl clean the dirt on her body. "Vixen, you told me that you were going to eat with your roommate today. She must have seduced you." The girl who committed the assault looked aggrieved and angry. Jing Yunzhao raised his eyebrows. "What's your roommate's name?" "Ding Yu. What's wrong?" Xiao Haiqing was puzzled. "She doesn't look too good. Her footsteps are weak and her eyes are white. She's also a little dazed. Now that she's so agitated, it won't be long before she faints with a plop." Jing Yunzhao shrugged and leaned back. "That's troublesome. Why don't we call an ambulance for her?" "Yunzhao, don't do anything. It's troublesome," Xiao Haiqing said. It was not that she was heartless, but some people did not seem to be worth helping. She had tried to persuade Ding Yu yesterday, but this woman was simply going against the whole world for a man. It was as if everyone who said that the boy was not a good person was a bad person. Not only that, but now, for example, she was aggressive and seemed to be quite powerful, but the boy's confidence was weak. He looked as if he had been wronged and vented his anger on the girl beside him. Obviously, if the girl was scared away by her, she might even try to change the scumbag's mind. Jing Yunzhao nodded and didn't have any intention of interfering. Even her roommate was disappointed in her. Why should an outsider like her meddle in other people's business? Xiao Haiqing trusted Jing Yunzhao very much. She immediately called for an ambulance. At this moment, the boy supported the long-haired girl and angrily rebuked. "It has nothing to do with her. Ding Yu, you're the one who misunderstood me. I never wanted to be with you. We're just friends. I didn't expect you to be so narcissistic. Why don't you take a look at yourself? You're so fierce, and you even studied acting. Can you enter the entertainment industry with your image? Don't you know how people laugh at you?" When Ding Yu heard this, her mind buzzed, and she felt as if the line of sight in front of her was gathering. Suddenly, he rushed up and pulled at the girl. The girl was already stunned. She looked like she didn't know what was going on at all. For a moment, she was incomparably flustered. However, it didn't last long before a bang sound was heard. Ding Yu fainted on the ground. Jing Yunzhao raised his eyebrows but did not step forward. After a while, the ambulance had already arrived. The people next to them were even a little stunned. After all, the ambulance seemed to have come too timely. It was as if it had been waiting there in advance. For Jing Yunzhao, this was just a small episode. The three of them were still eating. After filling their stomachs, they were ready to get up and leave. However, when the boy saw that he couldn't coax the long-haired girl, he suddenly ran in front of Xiao Haiqing and pointed at her. "It was you who contacted Ding Yu, right? I know you. You're her roommate. Are you happy to see us like this?" "It has nothing to do with me." Xiao Haiqing's face instantly darkened. "Do you think I'll believe it? If it's not you, who else could it be?" She fainted now. No, most of the responsibility is on you. If you didn't snitch, she wouldn't have to go to the hospital," the boy said again. Chapter 842. Xiao Haiqing snorted and looked dangerous. Even Suchu's face showed a trace of anger. Although Suchu's martial arts are not as good as Xiao Haiqing's, after all, Jing Yunzhao personally taught her. It's not a problem to deal with 5 or 6 big men. Moreover, with the influence of Jing Yunzhao over the years, Suchu has some bad temper, but it is hidden by the appearance of this lady. Jing Yunzhao stood behind. Suchu and Xiao Haiqing looked at her and signaled to each other. Their eyes were full of provocative smiles. Jing Yunzhao looked at it and took a step back obediently. The next second, I saw that the two almost synchronized with a kick and swept it directly. Suddenly, everyone was shocked. The boy suddenly staggered back a few steps and leaned against the wall. Then he covered his chest and coughed twice. He was very angry and rushed over immediately. If he didn't take the initiative to come forward, it would have been fine. Now he rushed up with a fierce face. Xiao Haiqing and Suchu immediately fought back. They divided their work and pulled his pair of arms. They turned them around fiercely, making a clicked sound. Then they punched him again in the back of his waist. The whole person was directly lying on the ground and howling. Well, look at your dress now. I thought you had forgotten what you had learned. Xiao Haiqing clapped his hands and gave a thumbs up to Suchu. Suchu's mouth was up, her face was slightly red, but she was a little excited. I've been learning for so long, but there are few opportunities to fight. It's rare to have a chance. You have to rob me. Suchu has a harmless face. There are 2 small dimples on her face. She smiles quietly and sweetly. I'm afraid no one can think that she will be so rude when she starts. Let's go. Jing Yunjiao came forward and said. When the 2 heard this, they were as obedient as cats and left side by side. The boy on the ground struggled to get up with his hands on his waist. His nose was bleeding. At this moment, the long-haired girl suddenly appeared in front of her and slapped her. The sound of the slap was crisp and clear. When the surrounding people saw this, they all had expressions of schadenfreude. However, after this fight, Su Chu and Xiao Haiqing's moods were much better. They had a bit of a heroine's aura. Jing Yunjiao has never been to this university town. The 2 took her to walk around. 2 hours later, they left for the beauty salon. So this Rouge Emperor is opened by Shun Tong. No wonder. I've heard people mention it several times. It's said that the cost is very high, and the reception is for people with VIP cards. Xiao Haiqing exclaimed. The decorations were extremely beautiful and gave off a comfortable and tranquil feeling. Jing Yunjiao directly led the 2 to Shun Tong's room. Shun Tong seemed to have been waiting for a long time. When she saw Jing Yunjiao, she immediately stood up. Miss Jing, are these your friends? The 2 of you are very pleasing to the eye. It seems that I'm very lucky today. Shun Tong said. Xiao Haiqing and Suchu were stunned. Xiao Haiqing said sincerely, you don't look any different from 20 years ago. I'm embarrassed to call you Aunt Tong like Yunjiao. Shun Tong laughed. Thank you for the compliment. She quickly asked the 3 of them to sit down. The room was filled with a fragrance. It was faint, but it was very special. Jing Yunjiao frowned slightly and said, the last time I was here, Aunt Tong's shop didn't smell like this. You're talking about this fragrance? It's a perfume my big sister gave me. It's light, but I like it. Shun Tong smiled. Chapter 843. Jing Yunjiao looked at her suspiciously. Where did you buy the spice? I didn't buy it. Didn't I mention it on the phone yesterday? My sister is Elder Su's daughter-in-law. The Su family has countless medical books. She's been married for so many years, so she must have been influenced by them. She likes to mess around with these things. She gave me this spice. Oh right, she heard that I had guests coming this morning, so she sent someone to give me a bottle of flower wine. She said it was a treasure she found in the cellar of her house. It's not high in alcohol content and can beautify the skin. I was going to let you try it. After Shan Tong finished speaking, she took out an exquisite bottle from the cabinet next to her. It was covered in pink flowers, and the faint fragrance could be smelled even before the bottle was opened. Jing Yunjiao's frown deepened. There were some desserts on the small table. After Shun Tong poured 3 glasses of wine, she poured herself a glass of water. Aren't you going to drink? Jing Yunjiao asked, his gaze cold. Me? I haven't drunk in over 20 years. Drinking messes up things, so I've never touched a drop of alcohol. Every time I socialize with others, I'll pretend to drink, but those who know me know my habit. This wine is for you. I'm sorry, but I can't drink with you. Shun Tong hurriedly explained. Jing Yunjiao's eyes flashed. Aunt Tong, how long have you been using this spice? Shin Tong froze for a moment and thought for a moment. It's been a while. The last time you came, didn't a fan suddenly appear? Because of that fan, I haven't been able to sleep well for a few days, so my sister specially gave me this. Even though my chest still feels stuffy and uncomfortable, at least I can sleep well at night. Shin Tong's expression was normal, and Jing Yunjiao didn't see anything wrong with it. If this was a lie, then her skills were too profound. Even if she was an actress, she shouldn't be able to do this. Yunjiao, your occupational disease is really serious. Xiao Haiqing laughed and raised her hand to take the wine, but she was stopped by Jing Yunjiao. Xiao Haiqing was a little puzzled. Jing Yunjiao tried to sniff the wine again and even took a light sip. Then, he immediately wiped the wine off his lips and said with a serious face, Aunt Tong, I'm afraid we can't drink this wine. What is the meaning of this? Shun Tong was startled. He felt that Jing Yunjiao seemed to be a little angry, but the reason was inexplicable. This wine must have been brewed with unprocessed grassroots, Jing Yunjiao said. As for the flowers, they must have been added later. To put it simply, this wine is poisonous. This amount is enough to kill the three of us. When he said that, Shun Tong was stunned. She thought Jing Yunjiao was joking. However, Xiao Haiqing and Su Chu didn't doubt Jing Yunjiao's words at all. They immediately pushed the wine away and glared at Shun Tong angrily. However, this was the first time they had met Shun Tong, so they didn't know why. Even Jing Yunjiao wasn't very close to her. They didn't have any grudges in the past, so why would he poison her for no reason? No. Shun Tong awkwardly said, Miss Jing, I think we aren't in a movie, right? Why is there such a cliché plot? Poisoning and all that. It's so strange. She had only seen this kind of poisoning scene in ancient palace dramas. It's not just the wine. Even the fragrance in the room is problematic. Jing Yunjiao said, the spices are mixed with Chinese roses, orchids, and many other flowers. The fragrance itself isn't a problem, but it's not good if it's too strong. Chinese roses have a strong fragrance, and breathing too much will cause chest tightness. If it's serious, it'll cause suffocation and difficulty breathing. Your spices are extracted from the essence of the flowers. Chapter 844. Jing Yunjiao's explanation was clear and logical, but Shun Tong was completely confused by it. How could it be? This was a gift from Shun Shi. Even if Shun Shi wasn't proficient in medicine, she had some skills. How could she send something problematic? Miss Jing, I think you have misunderstood something. That's impossible. Shun Tong was confused. Aunt Tong, Yunjiao wouldn't lie, especially when it comes to medicine and pharmacology. She's a famous TCM doctor in Ning City. If you don't believe me, you can try it on a living thing, or we can call the police and let them verify it. But if it turns out to be poisonous, it won't be good for you, Xiao Haiqing said directly. Although she didn't know why Shun Tong did this, she couldn't stand it when she poisoned her so openly. Jing Yunjiao shook her head. It's useless to call the police. Although it can be verified that it's poisonous, it's not unusual for accidents to happen because people often use aconitum chinense or aconitum chinense. Auntie Tong, we don't have any enmity between us. I don't think it was you who did it. I just hope that you can think about it carefully. What's going on with that eldest sister of yours? Does she know who the guests are? Jing Yunjiao continued. Since she was Shun Tong's sister, she should know that Shun Tong didn't drink. Then the wine was specially prepared for the three of them. As for the spices, they were commonly used by Shun Tong. Generally, they weren't fatal, but they could make people feel uncomfortable. She knows. Shun Tong couldn't figure it out. After I called you yesterday, I wanted to tell my sister not to disturb Master Su, but she didn't answer my call. She didn't reply until this morning. I asked her about it, and she said she didn't know that Master Su was in the capital. She said she didn't see him at the mall yesterday. Then, I mentioned you, and I said I was going to entertain you today. I asked her if she wanted to come along. After all, you were with Master Su, so she should have asked, but she didn't agree. She said she had something to do, but to thank you for taking care of Master Su, she sent the wine. Jing Yunjiao's eyes darkened. This matter would be left unsettled. Just now, Shun Shi had mentioned that this wine was found by Shun Shi in the cellar. He didn't know who made the wine, so he couldn't be sure if Shun Shi did it on purpose. Moreover, she had never seen that woman before, so where did the motive come from? However, she didn't know why, but she felt that things weren't that simple. Take this spice for example. Although it wasn't targeted at her, it was still a little strange. Su Lao was very stubborn and crazy when it came to pharmacology. He hated it when people insulted medicinal herbs and pretended to know when they didn't. As Su Lao's daughter-in-law, even if Su Lao wasn't around, Shun Shi would never mess around with medicinal herbs if she wasn't proficient in it. However, she did it and even gave the results to others. It was very contradictory to the situation of the Su family. Auntie Tong, I wonder if you can use the most pertinent way to describe this elder sister of yours to me? Jing Yunjiao asked. Shintong still looked a little nervous. Although she didn't believe that there was poison in the wine, Jing Yunjiao didn't look like he was joking. Moreover, whether there was poison in the wine or not, she would know when she brought the wine to the hospital. Elder sister. She is a gentle woman. She's been the same for decades. She's kind and generous. Elder sister and I have the same father but different mothers. She's 4 years older than me. We didn't have a good education and our family background was average. I was lucky and became famous when I was young. I earned some money to support the family. Elder sister has always been proud of me and thought that I worked very hard. Later, I went abroad for personal reasons. When I was at my lowest, I relied on elder sister's support. Chapter 845. Shintong's voice was sincere, and she quickly added, "You know Elder Su, so you should know the identity of the person my elder sister married. She has been very careful all these years. If this thing is poisonous, then she definitely didn't do it on purpose. Miss Jing, I still hope you can take it as an accident. I will definitely ask her later. She and I are not that kind of vicious people. Moreover, we have no enmity with you 3 children. Why would we be so heavy-handed?" Although Jing Yunjiao knew Elder Su, she didn't know much about Elder Su's family. "Yesterday, you said that Aunt Shunshi panicked when she saw me and Elder Su, right?" Jing Yunjiao thought carefully and asked. The only connection she had with the Su family was Su Xianlan. Whether it was Elder Su or Su Xingyuan, they both told her that her face was very similar to Su Xianlan's. If it wasn't for the fact that all aspects didn't match, they would even suspect that she was Su Xianlan's daughter. Indeed, but she said that it was only because she was dizzy and uncomfortable. My elder sister has no reason to be like that. Shintong was also puzzled. Even though her elder sister had explained it to her, her suspicions had always been there. Did Shin Shi and her sister-in-law, Su Xianlan, have a good relationship in the past? After a few seconds, Jing Yunjiao asked again. Shintong was stunned. "Why did you mention Su Xianlan?" "Aunt Tong, if your elder sister really panicked because of me, then the reason must be because of Su Xianlan. I am sure that I have never seen Shanxi before, but Su Xianlan is related to her. Moreover, I look 60 to 70% similar to Su Xianlan. If you look at me from a distance and don't pay attention to my temperament, I'm afraid the degree of similarity is greater." Jing Yunjiao didn't hide it and spoke the truth. When Shintong heard this, she was even more surprised. Was it really because of this? Su Xianlan. Back then, she was a very famous, talented woman. My elder sister told me that if Su Xianlan had chosen the path of acting, even I wouldn't have been able to make a living. I heard that she had been well-versed in ancient scriptures since she was a child and knew how to play the zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting. She was completely different from women of our background. As for her personality, I only heard that she was very amiable. In fact, I was already abroad when she had that accident. I only heard from my elder sister that they had a very good relationship and were as close as sisters. Shintong seemed to be lost in her memories. Jing Yunjiao became more and more confused. The more he explained, the more she seemed like a perfect person. Mr. Su had only moved to the county town a few years ago. He used to live with his children, grandchildren, and daughter-in-law. According to his temper, if Shunshi had done something bad, she would have been kicked out of the house long ago. But the more innocent Shunshi was, the more abnormal she felt. She was a member of the Su family, and her husband was not a simple man. She had been trying to leave a good impression on people for decades, but why would she suddenly give out 2 problematic items one day? Jing Yunjiao frowned and sorted out her thoughts. Suppose something happened to her, Haiqing, and the other 2 because they drank the medicinal wine. What would happen then? Although she was the one who gave the medicinal wine, the Su family was a family of pharmacists. It was understandable for accidents to happen occasionally, but Shintong, who had personally brought the wine to them, would definitely be ruined. Word would definitely spread. She used to be a celebrity, so things would get out of hand in the end. She would lose her reputation, and the business of the place where she died would definitely get worse. In short, her life would definitely not be good. And if she died, Mr. Su, who had already suffered the pain of losing his daughter, would definitely be greatly affected this time. Because the wine came from the Su family, Mr. Su's relationship with his children would definitely worsen. But although she could think of so many possibilities, she still had a feeling that she had not found the key point. If she died, what would Shin-shi gain? After all, Mr. Su and his children and grandchildren of the Su family were already in a bad situation. There was no need to do more than that. And if it was just targeting Shun Tong, it could have been anyone. There were so many guests here. Any one of them would have been fine. Why did it have to be her? Jing Yunjiao only felt that her head was burning. She had a terrible headache. Chapter 846. Shin-shi and Shun Tong were sisters. Jing Yunjiao knew that she couldn't judge Shun-shi based solely on Shun Tong's opinion of her. No matter what, she had to find a way to meet Shin-shi. She couldn't pretend that she didn't know anything about a woman who had almost poisoned her, regardless of whether the other party had done it intentionally or not. However, it wasn't good to tell Su Lao about this. Su Lao was already estranged from his children. If she told him about this, it would inevitably be suspected of sowing discord. Moreover, the whole story wasn't clear yet, so it was a little rushed to speak now. Seeing Jing Yunjiao's dignified expression, Shun Tong was a little uneasy. She couldn't figure out what was going on. After a while, Shun Tong asked tentatively, "Miss Jing, did you think that my sister panicked when she saw you because of her bad relationship with Su Xianlan?" Jing Yunjiao didn't hide anything and nodded. "Annie Tong, this isn't the first time we've met. I trust your character quite a bit, but that Annie Shin, she makes me feel a little strange. Oh right, what happened to the fan that was sent to the police station?" She was quite good at reading people. Shin Tong was a very sincere person. Otherwise, a rich young lady like Hua Tianxian wouldn't be so respectful to her. The police investigated and said that the fan was mentally ill. I didn't want to make a big deal out of it in case I was targeted by the media again, so I sent her to a mental hospital, Shin Tong said. "Aunt Tong, I remember you saying that this isn't the first time you've encountered this kind of thing after coming back from abroad, right?" Jing Yunjiao asked again. Shin Tong nodded. "That's right. There was another serious incident. A fan said that she wanted to die with me and hugged me tightly. At that time, there were many people on the road, but it was scary but not dangerous. Other than that, there were also fans who rushed up and asked me to give birth to their children or something. It was a little strange, but in the end, it was all the same. I was just shocked." Jing Yunjiao raised her eyebrows. "Aunt Tong, you can't let your guard down. I think you should pay more attention to the people around you." "Miss Jing, are you saying that someone deliberately arranged this?" Shun Tong's face was full of disbelief. She had always been very popular and treated people kindly. After all these years, she had never taken the initiative to offend anyone. Moreover, she had just returned from abroad 3 years ago, so no one had any deep hatred for her. "Actually, I've already reminded you last time. To put it bluntly, I'm afraid that I'm not as open-minded as the average person. In my eyes, there's no danger that appears out of nowhere, let alone one after another," Jing Yunjiao said straightforwardly. She had been framed and was traumatized. In her past life, Xiao Hongye used all kinds of coincidences to create rumors. After her rebirth, it was the same. If she wanted to stand out, some people would be unhappy, and danger would follow. As for Shen Tong, she had indeed created many classics. 20 years was enough time for one to forget a person. She had kept a low profile, so how could she have so many crazy fans? Shin Tong's expression turned solemn. He seemed to have a lot on his mind. Thinking of this spice, his elder sister Shan-shi's face flashed through his mind, but he quickly dismissed it. He laughed dryly, got up, and took the wine back. After thinking for a while, he asked someone to pour 3 cups of water. "I'm sorry to have frightened you," Shun Tong said. "It's fine. It looks like Annie Tong was more frightened than me." Jing Yunjiao smiled and took a few sips of the water. Shin Tong breathed a sigh of relief. She was really afraid that Jing Yunjiao would suddenly say that there was poison in the water. In short, it was too difficult to accept and made her tremble with fear. Chapter 847. Jing Yunjiao let down her guard. Only then did Xiao Haiqing and Su Chu's expressions become slightly better. However, the harmonious atmosphere from before did not return to normal. The room looked a little quiet. Shin Tong tried to put aside his suspicions for the time being and began to carefully observe the 2 girls Jing Yunjiao had brought. This girl called Chu Chu matched her name well. She was like an orchid, extremely virtuous. Her looks were also quite sweet, and she had a temperament. However, she couldn't be considered a unique beauty. If the person Jing Yunjiao wanted to help was her, she probably wouldn't have a good development. After all, although her face was not bad, it would definitely limit her acting career. Moreover, this girl did not seem to be very scheming. She was like a piece of white paper, and the entertainment industry was now a pot of black ink. It would be a pity to stain it. The girl named Xiao Haiqing next to her was a little more tenacious. She was charming but not seductive. Her temperament could be controlled and she looked straightforward, but she was not a brainless person with big breasts. Her face was very beautiful. Although it was not a beauty, there was a lot of room for development. Her figure, height, age, temperament, and temper were all good. The person Jing Yunjiao wanted to recommend should be her. She knew many directors and entertainment company executives, and many of them were even her close friends. For so many years, she rarely recommended talents. If she asked, no one should refuse. A few days ago, one of her director friends was still in a gloomy mood because he could not find a satisfactory actress. At that time, he mentioned to her that if she found a suitable actress, she should inform him. However, his requirements were higher. The actress had to be under 25 years old, because the age of the character was not set to be old. Women over 20 years old could not act that young no matter how much makeup they put on. Xiao Haiqing happened to be suitable. In addition, the actress had to be beautiful and recognizable. Although this character was only a supporting role, her personality was very outstanding. Therefore, he could not use a vase with only a face and no acting skills. She did not know how good Xiao Haiqing's acting skills were, but even the person she recommended would have to audition. At that time, whether or not she could be used depended on the director. Miss Xiao, are you majoring in acting? Shin Tong changed the topic and asked. Xiao Haiqing nodded. Jing Yunjiao said, Aunt Tong, you don't have to be so polite. We are all juniors. You can just call us by our names. Shin Tong smiled. That's even better. It'll make us seem closer. The atmosphere eased a little. I know a director who can't find a suitable person for a role. Do you want to audition? Shin Tong didn't deliberately keep her in suspense and asked directly. When Xiao Haiqing heard this, she glanced at Jing Yunjiao. She was a little surprised. She didn't expect Shin Tong to still be willing to help after such a commotion. Thank you. May I know what kind of role it is? Xiao Haiqing said politely and asked again. A hint of admiration flashed through Shin Tong's eyes. Generally speaking, little girls of this age would almost accept the role almost without hesitation. However, in her opinion, a role that was not suitable for her was just a waste of time. If Xiao Haiqing wanted to be the most dazzling one, she had to be careful from the beginning. This director is shooting a period drama this time. The other important roles have been confirmed. The leading actors are all very capable and famous. As for your role, if you play it well, you will definitely gain something. However, if you don't play it well, you may not be very popular because the character setting is complicated and there are many inner scenes. It will be a test of your acting skills. Shin Tong reminded her. Chapter 848. When Xiao Haiqing heard this, her interest was piqued. If it was a competition of acting skills, she wasn't afraid. Although she had only been in the industry for a short time, she was more hardworking than others. Ever since she entered the industry, she hadn't had a good rest. Moreover, she was quite talented in this area. Now that Shin Tong mentioned it, she knew what kind of drama it was. There was only one historical drama that was going to be filmed recently. It was called Eunuch's Palace. It was about a eunuch in power. Although it was very popular, she didn't know the details of the story. Therefore, she didn't know the role Shin Tong was talking about. However, she was sure that once Eunuch's Palace was released, the ratings would be guaranteed. Most importantly, the people used in this drama were all carefully selected. If she could be selected, it would be a great help to her in all aspects. Seeing that Xiao Haiqing was interested, Shin Tong hurriedly left the room. Not long after, she came back with a folder. At the time, the director wanted me to play one of the roles out of friendship. However, I left the entertainment industry for a long time and didn't want to go back. However, I kept the script. You can take a look. Alright, this is about your role. Shin Tong handed the folder over. Xiao Haiqing took it with a serious expression. Your role is called Xian Han. The setting. I don't know if you can accept it. Shun Tong's expression was a little strange. Jing Yunjiao was also interested. She and Su Chu leaned over to read it together. The story went like this. The late emperor was muddle-headed and favored a traitorous official and a eunuch. These two bad people were good brothers since they were young. They supported each other all the way. As the villain, of course, they had to do all the bad things. They had to frame the loyal official. The loyal official used his family's reputation to drag the traitorous official down with him. They were executed together. The eunuch naturally wanted to help his brother. He tried his best to protect the traitorous official's daughter and gave her to a merchant to raise. This person was the female lead. However, the female lead naturally didn't have such a background. The truth was that the loyal official had wanted to protect his children before he died. He knew that the eunuchs would find out even if he gave them away. Thus, when he was in prison, he used his boldness to capture the jailer and exchange the children of the two families. On the surface, the loyal and virtuous female lead was raised outside as the daughter of a treacherous official. She didn't have to worry about food or clothing, and became a young miss who was proficient in the four arts. She was innocent, lively, and kind, and was protected by the eunuchs. The real daughter of the treacherous official became a thorn in the side of the eunuchs. When she was young, she was rescued from prison with great difficulty, but was constantly chased after and suffered all kinds of pain. And this girl was the character introduced by Shun Tong, Xian Han. In the drama, when Xian Han was young, she had met the down-and-out male lead before his halo had spread. They shared weal and woe for a while, but after all, she was not the female lead. Later on, the male lead despised her character for stealing to fill her stomach. When she wanted to apologize, she was caught by a eunuch. As a girl, she was sent into the palace to be a little eunuch instead of a palace maid. She did the most difficult work and suffered the most terrible punishment. At that time, the eunuchs were arrogant, vicious, and cunning. Slowly, in order to protect herself, Xian Han became cunning. She still thought that she was the daughter of a loyal official. When she found out that the female lead was the daughter of a treacherous official, she was full of contempt and targeted her. She felt that the female lead deserved to die, and her personality became more and more sinister. The female lead's personality was kind, and Xian Han was the dark shadow that served as a foil to her. However, Xian Han couldn't be considered the second female lead. Although she was ruthless, her status wasn't high. She could only work together with the second female lead, and could be considered the second female lead's military advisor. At the end of the story, Xian Han died without a doubt, but she died very miserably. Although she was bad, she was proud of her reputation as the daughter of a loyal official. But in the end, when she found out that she was the daughter of a treacherous official, she completely collapsed. The last trace of kindness in her heart disappeared, and because she didn't repent, she was personally killed by the male lead. Chapter 849. This character was definitely the most pitiful character in the entire drama. She had never enjoyed any good fortune in her life. When the eunuchs were in control, she was the daughter of a loyal official. When the eunuchs started to decline, she became the daughter of a bad person who was disliked by everyone. Even her wickedness had a reason. Xiao Haiqing and the other two spent a long time watching it in one go. After watching it, they all felt that Xian Han really lived up to her name. Maybe my 3 views aren't very good. I feel that she's quite pitiful. Xiao Haiqing scratched her head and looked innocently at Jing Yunjiao. Jing Yunjiao curled her lips and smiled. She was indeed quite pitiful. However, the reason why they could relate to her was because Xian Han's life was quite hard. She had to bear the title that others forced on her and lived in the most dark place in the world. Living with those eunuchs who abused her, it would be strange if her personality wasn't twisted. Even if it was twisted, she still had a kind heart. It was a pity that the heavens didn't treat her well and even took away her only respect. I also like this character. After a while, Jing Yunjiao also spoke up. In the beginning, Xian Han had risked stealing from the eunuchs to save people for her reputation as the daughter of a loyal official. Although she was against the female lead, It was only because in her eyes, the traitorous official who killed her parents should have no descendants. It was completely reasonable for her to do something like that for revenge. Jing Yunjiao also admitted that she wasn't suited to be a pure person. Yunjiao, if you like her, no matter what, I have to get her. I think I should be able to handle it. Just wait for my good news when the time comes. Xiao Haiqing laughed heartily. Although this character is bad, her badness is different from those selfish ones. So you have to grasp it well. I feel that after seeing your image, if this character was changed to someone else, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to get used to it. Shintong also laughed. Actually, there were other characters, but she felt that this one was the most suitable. Xiao Haiqing nodded, her eyes filled with a flame of excitement. She really liked this kind of character with a perverted personality, especially compared to the female lead who was lucky, righteous, and overly kind. This character was more humane. Moreover, her story arc was very full. In the beginning, she was scared and naive when she was on the run. When the male lead angrily scolded her for having a bad character, she panicked and contradicted herself. Later on, when she became a eunuch, she was scared, resisted, obeyed, grew up, and took revenge. The series was very exciting. Aunt Tong, thank you very much. Xiao Haiqing said sincerely again. You're welcome. I've already told Yunjiao that everything will depend on fate. Plus, you're very special. Even if I don't introduce you, you'll have a day where you'll stand out, Shen Tong replied honestly. When Jing Yunjiao heard this, he thought of Shan Tong's connections and felt that she should know a good agent. She remembered that in her previous life, in the past 2 years, a very poor agent suddenly rose up and pushed a newcomer to become very popular. However, after the newcomer became popular, the agent was fired. After a series of ups and downs, the agent finally became disillusioned and became a monk. At the time, the entertainment channels on TV talked about this incident every day. It was said that the agent was quite capable, but he was just unlucky. Aunt Tong, do you know an agent called Ling Lin? Jing Yunjiao still asked. Sister Lin? I know her. She's a very good person and is very responsible. However, she offended someone because she made her artist refuse to accompany others. In the past few years, she's been suppressed and unable to make a name for herself. Shun Tong was stunned. Don't tell me you want. Chapter 850. Before Shen Tong could finish her sentence, Jing Yunjiao had already nodded. Haiqing will definitely need a reliable manager in the future, but both of us have high expectations in this area. To put it bluntly, those top managers might not want to take on a newbie like Haiqing. However, based on her and Haiqing's personality, they wouldn't trust an ordinary and unfamiliar manager. Ling Lin was in dire straits now, but she was famous for her good character and ability. If Haiqing could sign her, it would be beneficial for him. But how do you know about Sister Lin? She hasn't been famous for a while now. I just happened to hear about her, Jing Yunjiao said casually. Of course, she would not say that she knew about her from her past life. Okay, I will help you contact her and see what she thinks. After all, she has high expectations for her artists. Shun Tong did not ask any more questions and nodded. Jing Yunjiao sighed in relief. Xiao Haiqing did not have any objections. In this world, anyone could harm her, including her biological father, but Jing Yunjiao would not. After they finished talking about business, Shun Tong chatted with Xiao Haiqing for a while about the role in the script. After all, she was a real actress, so Xiao Haiqing listened attentively. She was enlightened and looked at Shun Tong with more respect. The three of them only left Shun Tong's place in the afternoon. However, after the three of them left, Shun Tong's heart sank. Especially when her phone rang. She looked at Shun Shi's name on the screen and did not know what to do. The matter of the spices and the wine made her suspicious. Also, she called right after Jing Yunjiao left. It was very strange. Looking at the bottle of wine, Shun Tong thought for a while and answered, Sister, why are you calling? Oh, I wanted to ask you, how was the wine? Did Jing Yunjiao like it? On the other end of the phone, Shun Shi was also a little suspicious. Why didn't Shun Tong sound panicked at all? Shin Tong could not help but clench her fist. They are students. They don't like to drink, although the alcohol content is not very high. Really? Then, I will go to your place and get the wine back? I just found out that the wine needs to be stored for a while before it tastes good. Shun, she said. Shintong's expression became even worse. Sister, I have already opened the wine. I just haven't drunk it yet. It smells good. Didn't you say that this wine is good for beauty? I'm going to take this wine to a research institute friend of mine. I'll ask her to help me take a look at the ingredients and see if she can extract the beautifying elements from it. If it's possible, you have to sell this recipe to me in the future. Shun Tong said. This was the first time she had lied to her sister. No, Shenza's, and actually, I just found out that this wine is his private. If he knows that I gave it away, he will be angry. So, don't give it away. And I will. I. Shin Tong's heart was completely crushed. She did not need to verify this. She knew what was going on. Okay then, you can come and get it. If it were not for the fact that I don't drink, I would really like to taste it, Shin Tong said sadly. She laughed dryly on the other end of the phone. After leaving Shan Tong's place, the three of them walked around. Jing Yunjiao remembered that the military had booked the location of the pharmaceutical factory and went to take a look. The pharmaceutical factory was huge and was being built day and night. Although it was her pharmaceutical factory, she did not need to pay for the construction and the construction. She felt that it was quite amazing. Chapter 851. With the help of the military, it wouldn't take long for the pharmaceutical factory to be completed. She didn't know when the factory manager that Li Xiaoyun wanted to introduce to her would take over. This time, she was really a hands-off boss. She didn't have to worry about anything. She just took the prescription and waited to make money. When Jing Yunjiao passed by the pharmaceutical factory in the car, she stared at it for a long time. Xiao Haiqing and the others were a little confused. After a while, she received a call to Xiao Haiqing, asking her to attend the audition tomorrow. It seemed that Shun Tong had already mentioned it to the director after they left. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been so quick. Haiqing, if you become popular, you must give me more autographs. I can give them to my roommates and make them jealous. Su Chu's eyes were full of hearts. Do you think I'm such a disloyal person? If I become popular, I'll let you book me for 2 hours every day. You can visit as much as you want. Xiao Haiqing rolled her eyes and looked magnanimous. Su Chu was amused. Xiao Haiqing said again, do you want me to let you touch the future superstar first? The corner of Jing Yunjiao's mouth twitched as she watched the two people at the side getting into a tussle again. When the city gate is on fire, the fish in the moat will suffer. She was at the side and couldn't avoid it. Her hair was a little messy, but she couldn't hold it in for long. She joined in and killed the two of them instantly. It's boring. Yunjiao, you're too strong. I can't pull you. That's right. Cousin, you're bullying the weak. I'm a virtuous lady. You're too violent. Who told you to be weak? Jing Yunjiao snorted with a smile. After a day of fun, Jing Yunjiao felt empty when she left. However, seeing that each of them had their own fulfilling lives, she felt a little satisfied. On the second night, Jing Yunjiao received another call from Xiao Haiqing. As expected, the role of Xian Han was accepted by her. However, Xiao Haiqing's attitude was a lot more serious. She told Jing Yunjiao everything that happened during the audition. Although Xian Han's role was not the first or second female lead, it was still very important. After all, she was the military advisor of the villains. In addition, she had met the male lead before and had a very exciting experience. Therefore, many B-list and C-list celebrities wanted to fight for the role. If it weren't for Shun Tong's introduction, she wouldn't have been qualified to audition at all. Moreover, because of Shun Tong, the director was more lenient towards her. Overall, his evaluation was, her image and temperament match. Although her acting is a little immature, it's enough to hone it a little. She had that kind of energy that you couldn't find in other actors. Of course, the director was more than happy to do so. Jing Yunjiao thought for a while and decided not to read at night. Instead, he began to mess around on the internet. What is this? Official fan club? Jing Er, do you have a fever? Hua Tianxian reached out and touched her head. She looked as if she had seen a ghost. As soon as she said that, Yao Baobao and Ren Xingyue immediately jumped over and stared at the computer screen in shock. In their hearts, although Jing Yunjiao was a woman, She walked the path of a domineering CEO. Suddenly, she started to chase after celebrities? This wasn't right. Jing Yunjiao pushed her hand away. She was in a good mood. What do you think the name of the fan club should be? The artist should be called Xiao Haiqing. I thought for a long time and couldn't think of a suitable one. I must be dreaming. Yao Baobao licked her lips. Xiao Haiqing? Who is that? I've never heard of such an artist. Hua Tianxian was also stunned. She felt that Jing Yunjiao seemed to be possessed. She doesn't have any works yet, but she will have one soon. Jing Yunjiao squinted her eyes and smiled. Her gaze was extremely gentle as she murmured, "What should we name it?" Chapter 852. Jing Yunjiao rested her chin on her hand, her face serious as she pondered. In front of her was a piece of paper with elegant handwriting engraved on it. Hua Tianxian reached out to take the piece of paper and took a look. She was even more taken aback as she felt a chill run down her spine. Her mouth twitched as she swallowed her saliva and said to Ren Xingyu, "Why don't we go outside and invite a quack to exorcise the evil?" This piece of paper was filled with the names of some of the fans. Beside it was a list with the nicknames of other celebrities' fans. It was obvious that Jing Yunjiao had specially gone to investigate. The names on the paper were very common, such as Yuan Xiao, Hami, Sponge, Qing Si, Yunjiao? Is this Xiao Haiqing your friend? Ren Xingyue asked after some thought. Jing Yunjiao nodded. Hua Tianxian and Ren Xingyue looked at each other. After a while, Hua Tianxian asked, "How long have you two known each other?" "More than 3 years. Jing Yunjiao answered honestly. Although the two of them weren't close during the first semester of high school, they were still acquaintances. An enlightened expression appeared on Celestial Immortal Hua's face. "No wonder. Your friend is quite lucky." As she said that, Hua Tianxian felt a little envious. They hadn't known Jing Yunjiao for a long time. It was impossible for them to be like Xiao Haiqing. She had never thought about it. However, when she saw Jing Yunjiao's reaction, she felt a little sad. She had a lot of friends. It could even be said that she had friends everywhere. Since she was young, she had been surrounded by all kinds of people. She was like the main character in the crowd. No one had ever yelled at her or expressed their dissatisfaction. It could be said that she felt that her world was smooth sailing. However, she wasn't stupid. She could share good times with friends, but she couldn't share weal and woe with them. Instead of calling them friends, they were more like followers. Almost none of them had looked at her with their own interests in mind. The people around her had their own confidants, but she definitely wasn't the one they would pour their hearts out for. If she wanted to have fun, she could gather dozens of people with just a call. However, if she wanted to talk about personal matters, the answer would be 0. Jing, I think Yuan Xiao is better. It's cute and delicious. It's easier to call it. Yao Baobao had already joined in, but I think Qing Si is more meaningful. Jing Yunjiao hesitated. That's right. Is this your friend? I thought she would be like the great deity. Yao Baobao pointed at the photo Jing Yunjiao uploaded and looked at it carefully. This photo was taken early in the morning in a secluded park when she was teaching Haiqing and the others martial arts. In the photo, Xiao Haiqing was wearing a neat sportswear, but it showed off her good figure. She looked refreshed and energetic. There was even a sunrise behind her back. It looked very artistic. Hua Tianxian also looked at it and was slightly stunned. She looks pretty good. She nodded reluctantly and praised her. Her skin was very good. Her eyes were very bright. Her nose was high, and she looked very elegant. She could be strong or weak at the same time. In the photo, she had short hair and looked a little heroic. However, she had a pair of peach blossom eyes. If she had long hair, she would definitely be very feminine. Jing Yunjiao pursed his lips and agreed. Hua Tianxian continued, I think Qing Si is better. Qing Si is very complicated and has a good meaning. It means that she will have a lot of fans in the future. Also, it is very difficult to cut off Qing Si. It means that she will have a good relationship with her fans in the future. You think it's good too? Then let's do it. Jing Yunjiao's eyes lit up. She had created a fan club that only had her as of now. Chapter 853. Seeing how excited Jing Yunjiao was, The three of them were also curious about the role Xiao Haiqing had accepted. After all, the entertainment industry was not a place where people could easily survive. Although Xiao Haiqing was good-looking, the entertainment industry had no shortage of beauties. However, Jing Yunzhao had a secretive look on his face. He said that he would reveal it to the public after the filming officially began. Seeing his childish look, Hua Tianxian rolled her eyes. She finally knew that there were only two people in the world who could change Jing Yunzhao. One was her boyfriend, who looked like he was not to be trifled with, and the other was her best friend, Xiao Haiqing. Unfortunately, she, Heavenly Fairy Hua, was not one of them. Although she was the daughter of the Hua family and didn't care about this at all, why did it make her feel so jealous? Ever since the backup team was established, Jing Yunzhao, as her only fan, had one more thing to do regularly, which was to post photos of Xiao Haiqing's daily life. Xiao Haiqing was confused about Jing Yunzhao's behavior in the beginning. However, she couldn't refuse Jing Yunzhao at all. Therefore, when Jing Yunzhao asked, Xiao Haiqing crazily took more than 100 selfies in one day and sent them all with an attitude of asking for praise. The backup team's name was Qing Si. Jing Yunzhao also gave himself a nickname, Yun Xiao. In addition to Xiao Haiqing's photos, she would occasionally post some beauty tips, various kinds of wine, flowers, and so on, which attracted some tourists. Although people didn't know where Xiao Haiqing came from, the photos were beautiful, her daily life was full of love, and the beauty tips were very effective. It attracted some wild fans who came to cheer every day. While Jing Yunzhao's days of chasing after celebrities began, he didn't forget about Shan Shi. The private detectives that he had previously organized were all dispatched. Inside a rented room, there were about 8 to 9 people. Some were staring at their computers, while others were listening to the sounds coming from their devices. They were all focused on their work. When Jing Yunzhao walked in, their attitudes immediately changed as they greeted her. "How is it?" Jing Yunzhao went straight to the point. Xiangzi and Bai Go have been following her for 2 weeks, but this Mrs. Su is still very normal. Sometimes she doesn't go out for a whole day. If she goes out, she goes to some jewelry stores or brand stores. Her social circle is very simple, and she is only a rich lady. She occasionally attends some banquets, and the photos are all like this. As he spoke, he handed a stack of photos over. It was Shun Shi in the photo. Although she was old, she was very beautiful and somewhat resembled Shen Tong. Every photo was extremely beautiful. Almost all of them had the same expression on their faces, with a smile on their lips. They looked very well-mannered. "Boss, are we still following her?" the person beside him asked. Of these people, some were sent by Hua Zhe. They would follow her in the future and help her deal with some trivial matters. Of course, the trivial matters that Hua Zhe mentioned were mostly threats and threats. Among them, some were good at stalking, some were good at driving, and some were quick-witted. Most of them had some skills. There were also 2 computer experts that she had poached from a university. These 2 were brothers. One was called Song Wan, and the other was Song Wu. Their family background was not very good, and they were very poor. Song Wan, how much information do you have on her? Jing Yunzhao asked again. Almost. But boss, her identity is not to be trifled with. Song Wan was a little hesitant. Seeing that Jing Yunzhao's expression didn't change, he said, Shun Shi is 46 years old this year. Her family is not very good since she was a child. After high school, she worked in an ordinary factory for a few years. Then her younger sister, Shun Tong, became famous. She resigned and became an assistant. Chapter 854. But I hacked the information of the entertainment company that Shin Tong worked for and found that her assistant was another person, who is now very famous, so I guess she was just a person who took money but didn't do anything. During the years when Shan Tong was popular, Shan Shi's identity was relatively simple, but one day, she suddenly married Su Yuantek. This Su Yuantek's identity is very powerful. He was a very promising crown prince and had a high position in politics. It stands to reason that the 2 of them shouldn't have interacted at all. This is not the point. The point is that according to the hospital, Shun Shi gave birth about 7 months after they got married, and it was not a premature birth, which means they got married with a baby. By the way, I said she was not to be trifled with because Shun Shi's husband, Su Yuantek, is now the leader of the capital. Song-won was also very surprised. Why did Jing Yunjiao ask them to investigate this person? For this purpose, they even hacked the police station's website. Fortunately, the two brothers were very capable, so they escaped unscathed and were not even found out. Jing Yunjiao was surprised. Su Yuantek was the eldest son of the old man, and she didn't expect him to be so successful. Didn't you find anything else? Something bad? Jing Yunjiao frowned. Yes. On the other side, Songwoo said, I found a number that was dialed from Mrs. Su's mobile phone. I found that every time the owner of the number picked up the phone, he would make some calls. Most of the people who answered the phone have a criminal record, and one of them is currently in the mental hospital and has a record of taking drugs. Jing Yunjiao froze for a moment. Mental hospital? Do you have photos of those people? Jing Yunjiao suddenly thought of something and asked quickly. Songwoo nodded. There were about 5 or 6 people, but Jing Yunjiao only saw one of them, the one who was sent to the mental hospital. This person was the one who attacked Shun Tong in the beauty salon that day. Jing Yunjiao curled the corner of her mouth and snorted coldly. She thought that Shun Shi was really so innocent, but it seemed that was not the case. Jing Yunjiao stared at the information and then turned to Su Yuantek's photos. She thought for a while and said, Can you find out where Su Yuantek often goes? Based on her relationship with Su Yuantek, it was reasonable for her to meet Su Yuantek. Yes, but we don't have enough people. Do you want us to call Mrs. Su's people back? Song said again. Jing Yunjiao nodded. As long as she knew that Mrs. Su's wife was dirty, she didn't need to care. If she could do something to her sister, then the peace between her and Su Xianlan could naturally be an illusion. In this way, she had a motive to do something to her. After all, she was similar to Su Xianlan, and she was with Su Xianlan. If Shi thought that she was Su Xianlan's daughter, she might not be able to tolerate it. However, Jing Yunjiao was also a little embarrassed. She was Su Xianlan's daughter-in-law, and she didn't want to make things difficult for the old man. Jing Yunjiao arranged the work of several people and then went to Su Xianlan's place. As usual, the old man did not seem to have a good attitude on his face, but he was always considerate of her. This house was filled with a warm feeling, especially where she lived. Even though she basically did not stay overnight, there was not a speck of dust in the house. Seeing that Su Xianlan was so concerned about Shan Shi, she felt even more embarrassed to ask about it. Su Xianlan was good to her, but Shan Shi was his daughter-in-law after all. She relied on her face, which was similar to Su Xianlan's daughter, to gain many benefits from Su Xianlan. She didn't want to talk about those things that made him upset. Chapter 855. Jing Yunjiao seemed to have a lot on her mind. Old man Su snorted and said that she was mischievous and gave her a knock on the head. Just as she was hesitating, another person appeared in the villa. Li Xiaoyan came in with a gift box. The box was filled with medicinal herbs that he had collected from somewhere. Old man Su took it happily, his eyes shining. These herbs are not cheap, Jing Yunjiao reminded him. Old man Su was too impolite when he accepted the gift. You brat, you've already become someone else's. What's wrong with me accepting some gifts? Old man Su glared and asked Su Xingyuan to put away the things as if Jing Yunjiao would fight with him. Yeah, you're mine now. Li Xiaoyun raised his eyebrows and looked at her ambiguously. Don't you need to train today? Jing Yunjiao looked at old man Su and asked. Li Xiaoyun sat beside her and reached over the back of the sofa to stroke her hair. He didn't touch her too much, but his actions were very intimate. I miss you. Jing Yunjiao's face instantly turned red. Old man Su is still here. Old man Su is experienced. Li Xiaoyun was very straightforward. Old man Su glared at Li Xiaoyun and muttered, This brat is still young. If you can bear it, then bear with it. If you can't, then find someone else. If Li Xiaoyun hadn't given her good medicinal herbs, his tone would have been different. However, after hearing Elder Su's words, Jing Yunjiao smiled. Li Xiaoyun also didn't show any weakness. Elder Su, among the juniors there aren't many who have the ability to snatch someone from my hands. Plus, Zhao doesn't like them either. The goods have already been sold. They can't be replaced in this lifetime. Old man Su's beard twitched. How could he not know? Among his peers, Li Xiaoyun was the best. He was capable and had a calm personality. There were indeed many outstanding young men. However, if they offended Li Xiaoyun, those children would be instantly turned into dregs. Let's not talk about his grandfather. Let's talk about Li Xiaoyun himself. Outsiders might not know, but he knew very well that he had a group of elites under him. Any one of them would have a frightening background, and all of them would listen to Li Xiaoyun. If it wasn't for the difference in age and seniority, Li Xiaoyun wouldn't have to be so polite to him. Speaking of which, he had seen this kid before. His eyes were in the sky, and his character was aloof and arrogant. He was completely a smiling tiger. Now that he was so obedient and sensible in front of him, it was all thanks to Jing Yunzhao's face. You're saying that the brat is a commodity? Li Clan's brat, you're looking down on me too much. However, Old Master Su didn't care about those so-called abilities or background at all. Li Xiaoyun narrowed his eyes and laughed self-mockingly. Elder Su, no matter how you look at it, the goods are mine, right? Moreover, I haven't finished my words just now. Among the juniors you know, there's no one who can compare to me. However, among the women in the world, there's no one who can compare to Zhao. Speaking of which, I'm taking advantage of you. You're the elder that Zhao values the most. In order for her to continue doting on me, you have to take care of me a little. He was blatantly trying to curry favor. When Jing Yunzhao heard this, she felt that it was mushy and her teeth were about to fall out. Elder Su was also surprised for a moment. Then, his old face turned red and he said in a serious tone, "You're not bad. The brat isn't the kind of person who's fickle. If you treat her well, you'll be rewarded." The corner of Jing Yunzhao's mouth twitched violently. Based on the old man's words, it seemed that she was so domineering that she was extremely dissatisfied with Li Xiaoyun's pickiness. Elder Su is right. Li Xiaoyun smiled and nodded in agreement. Chapter 856. This pair of old and young was like a crosstalk, making Jing Yunzhao feel that her skin was still too thin. If she had half of Li Xiaoyun's, she wouldn't be in a situation where her face and ears turned red after being teased a little. Li Xiaoyun accompanied Old Man Su to play 2 rounds of chess. The old man's heart had already flown to the medicinal herbs, so he didn't have any other thoughts. He lost miserably and decided to just go and research the medicinal herbs in a huff. The words that Jing Yunzhao had originally prepared didn't even have the chance to say. You wanted to say something but stopped. What happened? Li Xiaoyun asked as soon as the old man left. I originally wanted to see the old man's eldest son, but I don't know how to tell him, Jing Yunzhao said. After hearing what Shenxi said, she felt that Shenxi was deliberately avoiding her. If she didn't want her to avoid it, she could only start with the eldest son of the Su family. Su Yuantek? Li Xiaoyun raised his eyebrows, and his face was a little dignified. He's a very scheming person. If he wasn't in politics, the most suitable profession for him would be politics. Black and white seemed to be 2 extremes, but sometimes they were just different approaches to the same goal. When Jing Yunzhao heard this, she was shocked. I heard from Uncle Xingyuan that Elder Su's 2 sons are very filial and talented, of course. He's protective of his own family, just like how I'm protective of you. Li Xiaoyun didn't forget to say a few good words. Compared to before, Jing Yunzhao was a little immune. The corner of her mouth rose slightly, and her expression didn't change. She continued, Then can you tell me more about Su Yuantek? Jing Yunzhao's voice was gentle, which was very good for Li Xiaoyun. The genes of the Su family are relatively strong. Old Master Su's 3 children are all famous geniuses. The eldest, Su Yuantek, is the most outstanding one. The Su family has a clean background, but Su Yuantek doesn't like to make medicine. Since he became a politician, he's ruthless to his opponents. You should know a thing or two about Su Xianlan, right? Back then, when Su Xianlan disappeared, Su Yuantek was only about 30 years old. When he heard the news, he was furious and completely crippled Li Tianyi's legs, which could have been recovered. Later, he killed Li Tianyi's younger brother. The Li family is prosperous now, but one of his sons is dead and the other is injured. Old Man Li is very angry. Although there is no evidence, anyone with a discerning eye knows. Moreover, he has been at odds with the Li family all these years. The few times the Li family fell were all because of him, Li Xiaoyun said in detail. They were originally in-laws, but now they were enemies. Then it seems that he really dotes on his sister, Su Xianlan. Jing Yunzhao sighed. It's more than just doting. You can also see what kind of personality old man Su has. He was even worse in the past. When he was making medicine, he didn't care about anything. He wasn't a good husband or father at all. Su Yuantek practically raised Su Xianlan by her elder brother. He was like a father and a brother. He simply loved his sister more than his life. I heard that Su Xianlan was a nightmare in many people's hearts at that time because Su Yuantek was very protective of his sister. A few people who wanted to touch Su Xianlan were taught a terrible lesson by him. When Li Xiaoyun said this, there was a hint of admiration in his eyes. You're not the same age as them. How do you know so much? Jing Yunzhao suddenly asked. I've dealt with them before, but I'm not very familiar with them. Even so, I should check according to the rules, Li Xiaoyun said bluntly. Jing Yunzhao nodded in understanding. With Li Xiaoyun's background, he must have encountered a lot of things around him. Naturally, his vigilance would not be lower than hers. However, after hearing what he said, she had some admiration for Su Yuantek instead of fear. Chapter 857. Jing Yunzhao sank into the sofa. Li Xiaoyun pulled her into his arms and said, Tell me, why do you suddenly want to see Su Yuantek? Mr. Su kicked his 2 sons out of the house. You don't want to see him because of him, do you? Li Xiaoyun's arms were extremely warm and relaxed. Jing Yunzhao pushed him twice and didn't resist. She blushed and said, Su Yuantek's wife, Shun Shi, seems to be avoiding me and Mr. Su on purpose. So, I want to find an opportunity to visit the Su family openly and get to know this Shun Shi. The more the other party didn't want her to appear, the more she wanted to appear in front of her. Shun Shi. Li Xiaoyun smiled faintly and said, That woman is lucky. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to marry someone like Su Yuantek. When Su Yuantek was young, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he was favored by the heavens. However, he married a woman who had nothing but a pretty face. What do you mean? Jing Yunzhao was instantly interested. Back then, Su Yuantek was in someone's way. During a drinking party, he was drugged and accidentally slept with a woman. That woman is now Mrs. Su. Do you understand? Li Xiaoyun said. Are you sure? Mr. Su is a master pharmacist. Even if Su Yuantek didn't inherit the family business, he should have some ability to guard himself. How could he have been drugged? Jing Yunzhao didn't understand at all. I was also curious. The reason is actually very simple. After all, Su Yuantek was still young and somewhat arrogant in the field of medicine. He thought that he wouldn't be framed like this. However, the other party used a new kind of medicine and he couldn't avoid it. Fortunately, Su Yuantek, who was also drugged at that time, woke up early. Otherwise, his reputation would have been damaged, and it would have hindered his political career. Li Xiaoyun continued to explain. Jing Yunzhao was speechless. She had also found out a lot of things with her own ability, but it was not as detailed as what Li Xiaoyun had casually said. You don't have to be discouraged. This information came from the people who were at the same drinking party and knew the situation. I only know so much by coincidence. Li Xiaoyun did not forget to comfort him. Jing Yunzhao was not disappointed. After all, her information-gathering group had just been established, and it was already doing well. After listening to Li Xiaoyun, Jing Yunzhao felt that Shanxi was indeed a little hypocritical. In the photos she took, Shanxi looked especially noble, as if she was born with it. She did not show any inappropriate expression at all. No matter how perfect a person was, they should have emotions, but she only had one. You know so much. According to your opinion, how should I meet Su Yuantek? Jing Yunzhao asked deliberately. Li Xiaoyun's fingers tapped on his leg regularly. With your identity and that of Su Lao, you can meet him at any time. What's more, you look a little similar to Su Xianlan. However, if your target is Shanxi, then wait a little longer. In more than a month, there will be a business meeting. At that time, the pharmaceutical factory will be able to start production. Su Yuantek has already investigated the pharmaceutical factory. At that time, it will be appropriate for you to meet him as the owner of the pharmaceutical factory. Jing Yunzhao also understood in her heart. If she used someone else as her backer to meet Su Yuantek, it would seem that she had no confidence. However, with the pharmaceutical factory, it would be different. At that time, It would be open and above board. Moreover, as Su Yuantek's wife, She would definitely be present at that time. She would not be able to hide. Jing Yunjiao also nodded. Ah Zhao, I've said so much. My mouth is dry. Can you help me moisten it? In the blink of an eye, Li Xiaoyun suddenly lost his composure. It was inevitable for couples to have some intimate contact. However, she always kept a distance, so except for that time in the car, she did not let Li Xiaoyun have his way. However, now that he said that, the atmosphere was a little ambiguous. Her whole body was curled up in his arms, and it seemed a little natural. Chapter 858. The faint smell of sandalwood from Li Xiaoyun's body filled the tip of her nose. His warm breath tugged at her heartstrings, causing her heart to beat faster. Jing Yunjiao's slightly cold face showed a hint of redness, looking at her with a hint of seduction. Li Xiaoyun's gaze was gentle. His eyes were like ink, as if he wanted to soak the woman in front of him, instantly oppressing her. Their breaths intertwined, as if at that moment, the world was old. The heavy breathing made her blush. The weather in November had already turned cold, but Jing Yunjiao felt that the surrounding air was unbearably hot. From deep to shallow, after an unknown amount of time, Jing Yunjiao's eyes drifted, looking to the side. Ah Zhao, your taste is very sweet, Li Xiaoyun said slowly. In an instant, Jing Yunjiao became more and more like a cooked shrimp. You're not bad either. She pretended to be calm and said. The corner of Li Xiaoyun's mouth raised, and he could see Jing Yunjiao's embarrassment. Suddenly, he pulled her hand to his chest. You're a medical student, so you can feel my heartbeat, right? Ah Zhao, it's been stimulated by you, and it seems like it's going to come out. I can't control it now. What should I do? He seemed serious, but his words were sweet. Jing Yunjiao had never liked sweet things, but at this moment, a similar feeling arose in her heart. It turned out that some words from other people were mushy and exaggerated, but from the mouth of the person she liked, it was tender and sweet. Their eyes met, and Li Xiaoyun suddenly leaned over, and she suddenly felt dizzy. However, Jing Yunjiao was deeply afraid that Old Master Su or Uncle Su would suddenly appear, so she was very nervous. Even if she was confused, it didn't take long for her to break free from Li Xiaoyun's side. It's getting late. You should go back early. Be careful on the road. She seemed serious, but she didn't seem to know where to put her hands. Li Xiaoyun chuckled. She had always been calm, but in the end, she was still a little girl. She tidied up her wrinkled clothes, stood up, and said, Ah Zhao, are you going back on your words after taking advantage of him? You're chasing me away so quickly? Hearing him say that, Jing Yunjiao's face relaxed, and she smiled with a slight blush. Do you want to pay for this piece of tofu? Humph, is that enough? As he spoke, he flipped a coin. It's enough, but my tofu only has one customer, and that's you. So next time, don't wait too long. Otherwise, the tofu will break into pieces. Li Xiaoyun put the coin into his pocket and sighed. He was very engrossed in his act. His face was so beautiful that it could cause the downfall of a country and its people. His temperament was not something an ordinary rich young master could compare to, but he just had to play such a common joke with her. However, Li Xiaoyun had always been able to control himself. Although he looked childish at this moment, it was inexplicably heartwarming. After sending Li Xiaoyun away, Jing Yunjiao stayed in this house for the night. Her mood became more and more cheerful. The speed of absorbing the spirit jades in the space seemed to have sped up a lot because of her state of mind. More than half of the spirit jade had been absorbed, but the more it absorbed, the slower it became. It was as if the memories were about to reach saturation. Jing Yunjiao was not in a hurry. After all, her current medical skills were probably unparalleled. She had enough time to learn everything that the ancestor had left behind. Since the incident with the poison wine, She had been very quiet. She didn't know if she was deliberately restraining herself. Even Shan Tong felt as if the previous incident had never happened. Everything had returned to normal. However, the estrangement in her heart towards Shi, this big sister, could not be eliminated. Shi did not move, and Jing Yunjiao did not intend to take the initiative to provoke her for the time being. She began to put her time into the work of the pharmaceutical factory and the immortal crane hall. Chapter 859. When she went to Immortal Crane Hall again, that Grandma Yufu was also there. After seeing her, her attitude was obviously more courteous than last time, and it didn't seem like she was chatting with a junior. Although Jing Yunjiao didn't understand the relationship between the older generation, she knew that this Grandma Yufu must be treating her like this because of Elder Su. Immortal Crane Hall was very big, and many of the rules of ancient times were preserved. There were 5 doctors in the clinic and 20 to 30 medicine apprentices. After gathering everyone, Jing Yunjiao stood beside the old woman, and Grandma Yufu said, "From today onwards, she will occasionally come over to take care of some illnesses. If you have any illness that you can't solve, just hand it over to little Dr. Jing." The faces of the 5 doctors in charge were filled with astonishment and suspicion as they carefully stared at Jing Yunjiao. Her face was tender, and she didn't look like an old lady who was dressed up like this or had a chance to take care of her health. So, she was just a little girl, right? Their Immortal Crane Hall was spread all over the world, and now it was indeed in dire straits, but its reputation was also very good. Moreover, the doctors here were all taught by their masters, and since young, they had followed their masters to pick up medicine and treat illnesses. They were influenced by what they saw and heard, and there were some who finished their apprenticeship at the age of 20, but their abilities were average, and they needed to continue practicing. How could they treat difficult and complicated illnesses that others couldn't treat? Dr. Yu, her surname is Jing. Could it be that she is related to Immortal Crane Hall? An old man asked. Nope. Grandma Yufu was direct and said, little Dr. Jing's medical skills have already finished her apprenticeship, and she also has some experience. In the future, you can interact and guide each other in order to improve your medical skills. However, she is still a student, so she can't come for much time. Just connect with each other. After saying that, the old woman arranged for 2 medicine apprentices to help her before leaving. Once Yufu left, everyone looked at each other. Sigh. An old doctor sighed, and bowed his body as he left with a disappointed expression. How glorious was Immortal Crane Hall in the past. It was respected by all the medical families and had countless medicinal herb bases. It never lacked resources and had tens of millions of apprentices every year. However, after its decline, those apprentices either changed professions or went to study Western medicine. Even the medicinal herb fields had become the property of others. The only thing left was the red-crowned Crane Hall and a few stubborn old men. Of course, the number of doctors who were loyal to Immortal Crane Hall was not limited to these. However, the Jing clan's bloodline was broken, and some medical books and skills were lost. The doctors had nothing to learn, and without a leader, they naturally went to establish their own clans or join other clans. Currently, the medicine hall was indeed lacking in physicians. However, he didn't expect that even a little girl would be able to perform. It was really lamentable. The old physicians all had similar thoughts. They all had good characters and were well educated, so they didn't say anything unpleasant. However, it was difficult for them to communicate and guide a little girl. Dr. Jing, these are the patients who are more difficult to deal with recently. They are all here for a follow-up consultation today. The little medical apprentice didn't know much, but he had an inexplicable admiration for Jing Yunjiao. There were a few patient records in front of him. They were sent over from the 5 doctors. Although the 5 physicians were putting on airs, they still didn't want to let Jing Yunjiao, this young man, mess around. Thus, they wanted to watch the show and show her their strength. Dozens of them are all difficult to deal with? Jing Yunjiao raised her eyebrows, somewhat surprised. The little medical apprentice also didn't know much. The other physicians said that if you want to learn how to run, you must first learn how to walk, step by step. Moreover, although these people's conditions aren't difficult to deal with, they are very complicated and not easy to treat. Chapter 860. As soon as Jing Yunjiao heard the words of the little medical assistant, she knew that she was being despised. But it was no wonder. Her appearance was indeed not very trustworthy. In the past, if it weren't for Old Master Su's support, those patients who didn't know her wouldn't let her treat them at all. However, she couldn't always rely on Old Master Su's reputation. She was no longer a novice now. She had enough confidence and ability. Jing Yunjiao restrained her temper and patiently looked at the cases of these people, and the results of several follow-up visits. The inside of the medicine hall was divided into a few compartments using screens. The doctors were all seated inside. Once the celestial crane hall opened its doors, patients came in one after another and were assigned by the half-baked apprentices according to their conditions and priorities. The patients Jing Yunjiao was responsible for today were all old patients, and there were even more than 10 of them. Thus, it seemed a little strange. Other doctors had at most 1 or 2 people in line. After all, the patients didn't come together. On the other hand, Jing Yunjiao was one of the dozens of patients who had already made an appointment. Even though they didn't make an appointment at the same time, many patients would rather be early than late. Thus, many of them gathered together. Now that they saw her, they felt a little uncomfortable. As long as it's not Dr. Wang who treats me, why is there a new medical apprentice today? Suddenly, a patient said angrily, "She's our new young doctor, Jing." The little medical assistant quickly explained. The other party was not happy. "You said she's a young doctor. How good can she be? The Mingyi Hospital next door doesn't have such a doctor." Mingyi Hospital was very big. There were many branches, and the building was getting more and more magnificent. Although it was a regular hospital, many people were not satisfied with the doctors because most of them were not very humane. They relied on medical equipment to say a few words, and the money would disappear like flowing water. Therefore, many people were not willing to go there. That's right. There aren't many people in the old doctor's next door. Why do we have to line up with this young doctor? Is there something wrong with my condition? Don't you want to treat me? In an instant, there was a lively discussion. Everyone was lining up, but no one came forward. The other old doctors didn't care either. The apprentices were also dissatisfied with Jing Yunjiao. Even though the little medical apprentices were innocent and ignorant, they couldn't control themselves in this kind of situation. Each and every one of them panicked. In addition, there were also people who maintained the order of the medicine hall. However, they were all motionless as if they had eaten lead medicine. Jing Yunjiao knew that if she couldn't pass this test or needed someone else to help her, she wouldn't be able to do anything in the future. He stood up and walked to the queue. He glanced at the crowd and finally looked at one of the women. He said, "According to the medical records, your eyes have been like this for a few weeks, right?" The other party was stunned for a moment before nodding his head. The angle of this woman's pupils was a little strange. She couldn't look directly at others. The whites of her eyes were a little red, and her complexion didn't look too good. In her opinion, there was a reason for all illnesses. If a person paid attention to their health, lived a regular life, and controlled their emotions well, the possibility of getting sick would be very low. "I only need to do it once to cure your eyes. I wonder if you're willing to give it a try?" Jing Yunjiao continued. It was useless to say anything more. He still needed her to prove that her age was not a problem for his medical skills. The woman was surprised and asked subconsciously how. Chapter 861. After the woman finished speaking, she was also a little uneasy. After all, the doctor in front of her was too young. If something happened during the treatment, she would be the one to suffer. However, if this were to continue, she would really go crazy. Her marriage was already in trouble, and now, because of this it was going to be completely ruined. Before your eyes had problems, you should have encountered some big changes, right? Jing Yunjiao saw that she was not very resistant, so he reached out to take her pulse and said casually. When she said this, she looked more like a charlatan. Yes, yes. The woman hesitated for a moment. Her mother-in-law felt that she could not give birth, so she secretly asked her husband to go on blind dates. At that time, her mother-in-law quarreled with her. The more she thought about it, the more sad and angry she became. However, this was a family matter. It should have nothing to do with her illness, right? This is not a problem with your eyes. To be exact, it should be other problems from your eyes. If I'm not wrong, you should be in a bad mood before you fell ill, and you were very angry. Because of your emotions, your anger hurt your liver. The liver injury caused qi stagnation and blood stasis. Because of depression, the liver fire became hot, so it rushed to the leader, causing the abnormality in your eyes. Jing Yunjiao was very detailed, but also followed a principle. Some things were more mysterious and credible the more they were not understood. The woman nodded. You're right. At that time, I had a big quarrel with my family, and then there was a problem. There are two ways to treat the illness. The first is to use the prescription prescribed by the previous doctor, but the treatment is slow. The other is to use both methods. I will use acupuncture to dredge your blood. There are no risks or side effects. It can immediately cure the problem of your eyes, but to avoid relapse, you have to take the medicine I prescribed. It can calm your liver qi and hides yang energy. However, you don't have to take the medicine for a long time. 3 days is enough, Jing Yunjiao said. The room opened by the previous doctor was more peaceful, and it was also a commonly used method. Her acupuncture method was a secret technique. When the woman heard this, she hesitated. It was not easy for her to go out because of her eyes. Sometimes, her husband needed to take her out to socialize, but she could not go. Her mother-in-law said that she had problems all over her body and felt that she was embarrassing. Although her husband was not happy, her mother-in-law was skillful. If this continued, it was inevitable that he would fall into her trap. What if something happens? You're still so young. I still think. The woman looked conflicted. Jing Yunjiao smiled. I am indeed young, but Immortal Crane Hall is not young. If I didn't have the ability, Immortal Crane Hall wouldn't have invited me to be the doctor in charge. The acupuncture process takes about 20 minutes. If you're still worried, you can let the person beside you accompany you. If you feel that something is wrong, you can immediately stop it. Hearing Jing Yunjiao's words, the woman's heart began to tilt. All right, I'll give it a try, the woman said. His eyes would return to normal in 20 minutes. Although he had to take medicine for 3 days, it was not a long time. Jing Yunjiao nodded and invited the woman into the inner room. The woman was still worried, so she asked another female patient to look after her. After taking off her clothes, Jing Yunjiao began to perform acupuncture. The people outside all looked up, afraid that an earth-shattering scream would suddenly come from inside. Some people even started counting down on their phones. 20 minutes was not long, and it was soon over. Why haven't you come out yet? 20 minutes have passed. Nothing will happen, right? Immediately, some people began to feel restless. Chapter 862. Everyone was a little suspicious, afraid that something bad would happen. Even the 5 old doctors were a little worried. After thinking about it, they sent a medicine boy over. However, before he went in, Jing Yunjiao had already brought him out. The acupuncture treatment time was indeed about 20 minutes, but after all, the clothes on the body had to be removed, so it was only a few minutes longer than expected. The woman followed behind Jing Yunjiao. Her expression was much better, and she even looked happy. When everyone looked at her eyes again, they were also shocked. When she went in just now, her pupils were obviously a little slanted, but now they were no different from ordinary people. Was it really cured in such a short time? Thank you, little doctor. Just now, The woman was a little embarrassed. When she went in, she was quite nervous. However, the girl's faint voice had a sense of comfort. The fragrance inside made her feel much better. She thought that it would be very painful, but she did not expect that other than the slight feeling of the silver needles touching her skin, there was no pain. You're welcome. What's cured now is just the surface. I'll write you a prescription. Go get the medicine and take it on time. Also, try to relax and not be angry, Jing Yunjiao said slowly. After saying that, he sat in front of the table and took a pen to write. This prescription was not a secret, so there was no need to deliberately avoid it. When the other doctors saw it, they were a little curious about which acupoints Jing Yunjiao had pierced. However, because of their face and because there were a lot of people at this time, it was not appropriate for them to go forward and ask directly. The handwriting surprised the woman again. When another patient went forward to take a look, they also revealed a look of shock. This handwriting did not look like it was written by an ordinary student. It looked like it had the style of a master. Of course, they did not know much about Chinese studies, but they still had a sense of aesthetics. They could not help but believe it in their hearts. The woman took the prescription and went to get the medicine. When everyone was hesitating whether to go forward, the woman who had watched Jing Yunjiao's acupuncture treatment spoke first. Little doctor, can you take a look at me first? Okay, sit down. Jing Yunjiao's expression was like an old doctor. I just gave birth. Recently, I've been restless. I feel very sad and feel like crying. I also feel like yawning, the woman said. She looked sad and absent-minded. She did not feel the joy of surpassing the child at all. Her pulse was weak and weak. She seemed to be a little impatient as she sat there, moving back and forth a few times. It's not a big problem. Jing Yunjiao comforted her and began to write the prescription. That's right. The doctor said the same thing before. He said that I just gave birth and didn't have enough blood. The woman quickly nodded. There are many types of irritability. Even though you've just given birth, it's not the type where the heart's blood isn't enough. Instead, it's the type where the fire is too strong. Recently, have you been having a lot of nightmares that make you easily wake up in the middle of the night? Do you also have constipation? The woman nodded. Then that's right. If you don't have enough heart blood, the coating on your tongue should be thin and light. On the other hand, it's different for yin deficiency and excessive fire. The coating on your tongue should be yellow and your tongue red. The prescription I gave you can nourish the yin and reduce the fire. However, I suggest that you replenish your sleep, relax your mind, and don't be too nervous. Jing Yunjiao's explanation was clear and concise, calming everyone who heard it. This woman had just given birth. She was probably too nervous about the child, so she could not sleep and eat well. She often had nightmares. In addition, the child's appearance would affect her routine, so there was a problem. Chapter 863. Jing Yunjiao prescribed a lily romania soup and asked the medicine boy to bring her to get the medicine. However, she was a little curious. Logically speaking, there were several different kinds of symptoms of visceral irritation, but it was not particularly difficult to distinguish them. If it was these few old doctors, they should not be wrong. However, Jing Yunjiao did not care so much now, because at this time, the people in the queue had begun to calm down. They were even faintly curious and were waiting to treat the patient. At this time, an old doctor next to her was angrily staring at his eldest disciple. He was very angry. He could not see such an obvious illness wrongly, and in the end, Jing Yunjiao pointed it out. It was really embarrassing. Fortunately, the patient did not pursue the matter, otherwise, he would have nowhere to put his face. The few old men were more complicated. They did not expect Jing Yunjiao to be so capable. They had seen the prescription that she had prescribed, and there was no problem at all. He was indeed a person with real talent and knowledge. They were not calculative people. It was a good thing for the national healer to have such an outstanding person among the younger generation. They just felt that the few of them were too stingy. Jing Yunjiao's expression was still the same, and she was not surprised. The patients came forward one by one, and they saw that every word she said was important. Some of them did acupuncture personally, and some of them used secret prescriptions, which made the 5 doctors feel more and more uncomfortable. Jing Yunjiao finished seeing dozens of patients at 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and they did not find any mistakes at all. Her treatment efficiency was extremely high. Moreover, she had seen the cases of these people in advance this time, so she knew what to do. Once she finished her work, she did not just sit around, but walked around the red-crowned crane hall. After a while, she went to the medicine cabinet to familiarize herself with the situation and help to get the medicine. Once she made her move, the few old men were shocked once again. As long as it was a medicinal herb, she would find it accurately. Their medicine cabinet was not simple, and there were many medicinal herbs in it. Usually, the medicine boy would be responsible for a certain area, so the probability of mistakes was small. However, Jing Yunjiao had just arrived, and she had just looked up at the position of the medicinal herbs, and she remembered them all. Her speed of getting the medicine was much faster than the medicine boy, and her actions were accurate. Every time she grabbed, she would use a small scale to weigh it, and it was almost the same. This ability made the few of them lose their temper. Dr. Yu, where did you find this little girl? Her ability is too astonishing. Look at her posture. I seem to be seeing the ability of the eldest miss when she was treating illnesses. To put it bluntly, even the eldest young miss back then didn't have such talent. How old is this girl? I asked Dr. Yu. She's only 18 years old, but Dr. Yu said that this child was introduced by old Mr. Su. Old Master Su? His disciple? That's not right. Elder Su does have medical skills. but he only likes to make medicine. He doesn't know how to save people. How could he let his disciple be a doctor? The old men were all very curious as they chatted amongst themselves. After 2 or 3 hours, when they saw Jing Yunjiao stop to pack up, they looked at each other and went forward to ask, "Little Dr. Jing, is there anything else? I still have to go back to school, so if there's nothing else, we'll meet again next time." The other party had just called out, but Jing Yunjiao had already replied politely. After that, she lifted her feet and walked out, waving her sleeves, leaving not a single cloud behind. That back view made the old men's faces twitch. When Jing Yunjiao walked out, there was a trace of a smile on her face. These old doctors looked down on her and deliberately made fun of her. Fortunately, she was very capable, otherwise, she wouldn't be able to finish today. Moreover, she heard clearly what they said behind her back. In return, she would not be able to satisfy their curiosity today. Chapter 864. Once Jing Yunjiao left, the few old doctors behind her were so anxious that they stomped their feet. There were too many things they wanted to know, such as her acupuncture technique and the interpretation of some prescriptions. Even though they were already old, they still had a lot of gossip in their hearts. They wanted to know what was the relationship between Jing Yunjiao and old Mr. Su. Old Master Su's medicine was the best among all the pharmaceutical masters. He could bring out the limit of the medicinal properties of the herbs. Some rare varieties were even better. Unfortunately, old Master Su had not been in the capital for a long time, and his medicine was hard to find. Jing Yunjiao couldn't have come to the pharmacy too often. The curiosity in the hearts of these old doctors would probably continue for a long time. However, old Madame Yu Fu was in trouble. The few old doctors suddenly became noisy, asking her to contact Jing Yunjiao from time to come to work. However, old Madame Yu Fu already knew that Jing Yunjiao was a busy person and would never follow the instructions of these old doctors. In the end, she was annoyed to the point of helplessness and decided to just close the door to the backyard, not allowing anyone to enter. Jing Yunjiao went to class as usual. The campus was no longer hot, but for the sake of beauty, there were still many people who wore coats but bare their legs. Let me tell you, Senior Yu took Zhou Meijun to the dean. Maybe he can help her restore her status as a student. I don't think it's possible, right? The rumors were so strong before, and it was related to Professor Mo. The dean will definitely not give Senior Yu face. That's hard to say. Have you forgotten that he has a family background? If Senior Yu goes to his father and tells him, won't the dean take a step back? Passing by the pavilion, Jing Yunjiao heard a few girls whispering. Hearing Zhou Meijun's name, Jing Yunjiao stopped in her tracks. What were you talking about? Jing Yunjiao walked over and asked directly. The few of them raised their heads to take a look. When they saw Jing Yunjiao, their expressions became a little strange. One of the girls hurriedly said, "That, we were just talking about Zhou Meijun, the one who got fired because she posted randomly. I know, you don't have to be nervous. I just want to ask you, why did Senior Yu bring her to the dean?" Jing Yunjiao asked calmly. "Actually, we're not too sure about the details. I heard that someone saw her coming with Senior Yu. Senior Yu's father and uncle are both powerful and rich. He's a true young master of a wealthy family. His words are very useful." The girl also relaxed and explained carefully. Jing Yunjiao raised her eyebrows. She had interacted with the dean before and could tell that the dean was not the kind of person who would let people go through the back door. Zhou Meijun's student status had already been revoked, and she still wanted to come back to life? No way. Who is this Senior Yu you're talking about? Jing Yunjiao asked. He's one of the 4 famous young masters in the capital city. His name is Su Yuantek. His father is the mayor of the capital city, Su Yuantek. In our university, he's one of the most untouchable people, the girl said. Jing Yunjiao's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. She did not expect Elder Su's grandson to be studying in a university, but she had never heard Elder Su mention it. Logically speaking, although this son had been kicked out of the family by Elder Su, the grandson was still part of the Su family. The older generation valued their descendants, so they should have mentioned it, right? Moreover, she remembered that even Su Xingyuan was the same. Every time he mentioned the Su family, he would refer to them as the children and grandchildren of the Su family. He completely put his grandson and son in the same category and did not seem to care at all. Senior Yu is a fourth-year student, but he doesn't come to class much. That Zhou Meijun is really lucky to have hooked up with him. This time, even if the dean doesn't help her return to school, he will definitely find a way to get her status back. Maybe she won't even get a demerit. That way, she can transfer to another good school. Chapter 865. The girl who spoke felt indignant on behalf of Jing Yunzhao. Most of the first-year students worshipped Jing Yunzhao. After all, she was the first student that Professor Mo had officially accepted. Jing Yunzhao had done something that none of the seniors had the ability to do. Moreover, she was beautiful and was recognized as the campus belle. Not only that, her pet Heidi had attracted a lot of fans. There were many people who were envious of her. However, Student Jing, although you feel wronged, let's just forget about this matter. Senior Yu, that person, has a bad temper. I heard from the seniors that I know that Su Yu caused a sensation when he first entered the school. Dozens of rich young masters drove luxury cars to send him here. On the third day of school, he managed to woo the campus belle. Then, a female student offended the campus belle, and he found his friends to humiliate her. Not long after, she dropped out of school. Also, every time Senior Yu plays basketball, he kills everyone. It's not because he's good at it, but because no one dares to beat him. If he wins, he'll definitely take revenge in other ways that night. He's famous for being domineering. He's had at least 8 if not 10 girlfriends and countless girls he's played with. If you offend him... Anyway, you should be able to think of it. Jing Yunzhao was good-looking and Zhou Meijun couldn't compare to her. However, Su Yu was famous for being protective of his girlfriends. When the time came, even if she was good-looking, he would definitely teach her a lesson first. Jing Yunzhao was shocked when she heard this evaluation. How could Elder Su's grandson be so unbearable? She felt that it shouldn't be. She had been educated by the old man all these years and naturally knew that he paid attention to character. Moreover, he often said that only good people could produce good herbs. Since that was the case, how could Su Yu be so crooked? Thank you, Jing Yunzhao said before leaving. The girl's eyes lit up as they looked at her back. Jing Yunzhao looks even prettier up close. She doesn't seem to have any makeup on, but her skin is so good that even her pores can't be seen. She's too good-looking, but she offended Su Yu. If Su Yu knew that she looked like this, I'm afraid he would take her in as a harem. Behind her, the girls sighed again. Jing Yunzhao heard this clearly, but his expression didn't change. After thinking for a moment, he called Uncle Xing Yuan. Uncle Su, where's the old man? Jing Yunzhao asked as soon as the call was connected. Master is taking his afternoon nap. Do you need me to wake him up? Although Su Xingyuan was an elder, he was still very polite. Jing Yunzhao hurriedly stopped her and asked, I'm looking for you. I just heard a classmate mention a Senior Yu. After asking carefully, I found out that Su Yu is the grandson of the old master. Only then did I remember that the old master hasn't mentioned him in the past 2 years. Why? You mean Su Yu? Su Xingyuan asked, then said, Master rarely cares about his son's family background, and Master Zhe hasn't cared much about the family these years. That kid was raised by Madam since he was young, and he's not close to the old master. The most important thing is that his character isn't very good. The old master and Master Zhe don't like him. No matter how much they teach him, he won't change, so they just don't care. Character isn't good. What exactly is it? Jing Yunzhao asked again. He eats, drinks, gambles, and has a lot of bad friends. He's lawless. When he was a teenager, he was personally sent to the juvenile detention center by Master Zhe. But after he came out, he still didn't change. Master Zhe felt guilty towards Madam, so he just turned a blind eye to it, Su Xingyan said directly. Jing Yunzhao's face froze. He was really surprised. But thinking about it carefully, Su Yu's mother was Shan Shi. With Shun Shi's hypocritical personality, even the best genes would be destroyed in her hands. Chapter 866. Jing Yunzhao suddenly asked Su Yu. Su Xingyuan also felt strange and hurriedly said, Did Su Yu do something? If he provoked you, just hit him. After you hit him, no one will find trouble with you. Master Zhe won't care. He was clear about Jing Yunzhao's ability, so he was not afraid that she would be at a disadvantage. He didn't provoke me. It's just that the girl who wrongly accused me of having an improper relationship with Professor Imo was brought back by him. It seems that he wants the dean to help her deal with her student status. We haven't met yet, Jing Yunzhao said. Is that so? Then there's no need to meet. I'll call Master Zhe now. With him suppressing it, Suyu can't do anything. Su Xingyuan was very straightforward. Although Su Xingyuan was only Elder Su's disciple, his surname was Su. He had been by Elder Su's side since he was young and was no different from his own son. Jing Yunzhao also nodded. This way, it would save them a lot of trouble. As soon as Jing Yunzhao hung up the phone, Su Xingyuan had already contacted Su Yuantek. Su Yuantek was a little nervous when he heard Su Xingyuan's voice. He thought that something had happened to the old man, but when he heard the details, his nervousness turned into displeasure. This son of his was simply a disgrace to the Su family. The Su family had been young for generations and had strict ancestral teachings. They had never had such an unfilial son. However, he was the one who had wronged Shunshi back then. These years, he had made her live like a widow. She only had a son by her side, so it was not easy to punish him severely. Otherwise, he would have thrown him directly into prison and let him reflect for the rest of his life. He did not know why, but he did not have much affection for this son. Perhaps it was because his existence was not of his own accord, but the result of being framed by his political opponents. Moreover, the Su family had always been low-key. Even if there were no elders watching over them, they had a sense of self-awareness in their bones. However, Suyu was different. When he was young, he was arrogant and overbearing. It was not that he had not been taught, but that he had not been taught well. After all, he had to go to work and could not watch over him at all times. Why did Dad suddenly care about Suyu? I mean, how did he know that Suyu was using my name to pressure the dean? Su Yuantek's voice was calm. He asked again before hanging up the phone. The girl who Suyu wanted to help offended Professor Imo, and Master just happened to know. Su Xingyuan did not tell the truth. Su Yuantek sighed. Dad's good. Not bad. Much better than before, Su Xingyuan said. He's good. He's as. Even learn. Addition. Take. Su Xingyuan said yes, but in his heart, he could not help but say, he came back a long time ago. When the old man had just left, Su Yuantek found someone to secretly watch over him. But at that time, the old man was so angry that he flew into a rage. Since then, he did not dare to do it again. Although Su Yuantek was in a high position, he was still in awe of the old man. Unfortunately, the father and son were separated by an old matter. It was difficult to reconcile. Su Xingyuan was the old man's man. Regardless of the truth of his words, Su Yuantek held a high position in his heart. After hanging up the phone, he immediately contacted the school. Chapter 867. At this moment, Suyu was sitting on the sofa in the dean's office, looking at the dean with his legs crossed. The dean's face was green with anger. Zhou Meijun stood beside him, looking extremely obedient, but she was extremely happy. After being wronged for so long, she finally got back the face she had earned. Professor Imo is your elder. Although he isn't close friends with your grandfather, he still knows him. You have to give him an explanation. Moreover, since this person has already been expelled, there's no possibility of her returning. Your father also said that the woman who asked you for help didn't have a good character. Not to mention that she won't be able to return to a university, even if she's a stepdaughter. No one in the capital city will accept her. When he gets back, he'll get someone to warn the Zhou family. Even if she's a stepdaughter, she should be taught well. Su Yuantek was well-connected and had a high status. Wasn't it easy for him to investigate someone? He only needed to ask around a little to find out who the girl who offended Professor Imo was. It didn't take much effort at all. As soon as he said that, Suyu stood up from the sofa with a whoosh. Zhou Meijun's face instantly turned pale. Impossible. Don't use my father to scare me. Why would he care about this? Suyu said immediately. The dean chuckled and suppressed his anger. He's your father. Why don't you call him and ask him yourself? As the dean, he wasn't afraid of this Su Yuantek. After all, he was just a young man. However, Su Yuantek was a big tiger with a ruthless personality. If he spoiled his son too much, it would be troublesome. But now, it seemed that he had thought too much. I don't need you to tell me. I'll call him. Su Yu snorted and picked up his phone to call. However, just as he opened his mouth to say Dad, he felt the pressure on the other end of the phone. Do you want to die? I seem to have let you off before, right? Now you even dare to offend your grandfather's friend? If you don't want to stay in school, I'll send you to prison immediately. Su Yuantek's voice was cold and his aura was frightening. When Su Yu heard that, his face changed instantly. He was livid. Brother Su, what the dean said, is it true? Zhou Meijuan's voice trembled. Su Yu's face turned ugly. Without even looking at the president, he walked out. Zhou Meijun saw this and immediately followed after him. Brother Su, didn't you say? Speak? Say what? You didn't tell me that the person you offended was Professor Mo. Su Yu's expression was cold as he threw his phone in anger. He knew about Professor Mo. His relationship with his grandfather could not be described as bad. Instead, it could be described as subtle. They seemed to be enemies, but at the same time, friends. If he had known that the person Zhou Meijun had offended was him, he would never have gotten involved in this mess. It was true that he was the only grandson of the Su family, but he couldn't afford to offend just anyone. There were at least 3 people he had to tolerate: his grandfather, his father, and his uncle. His uncle was not at home all year round, and he was usually too lazy to care about his affairs. But his grandfather was different. He had never been good to his grandson. He had no care and love. His father had always treated his grandfather's words like an imperial edict. Therefore, he absolutely could not do anything to annoy his grandfather. Otherwise, he would not have a good life. Zhou Meijun was trembling with fear. Brother Su, young Master Su, then I really can't go back to school? Zhou Meijun whispered. Let's forget about this. Su Yu did not take it to heart at all. After saying that, he raised his eyebrows, took out a good cigarette, and lit it. I remember you said that the person you offended was a girl who flattered the professor. What's her name? What does she look like? Chapter 868. Su Yu had been in the business for so many years. He didn't have any other skills, but he had a way with women. Women like Zhou Meijun were everywhere. Although she was fair and pretty, she could be played with as long as you spent money. Her background was not bad. She was the stepdaughter of the Zhou family, but in reality, she was just a burden. He was willing to stand up for her because he wanted to save face. He didn't want someone to be bullied with the title of Su Yu's girlfriend. He couldn't afford to lose face. However, he knew in his heart that Zhou Meijun was just using him. They were just taking what they needed. He could tolerate her using him, but he couldn't hide the truth. If she didn't hide Professor Mo's name, he wouldn't have been scolded by his father today. When he went back, he still had to ask his mother for help. There was a hint of danger in Su Yu's eyes. Zhou Meijuan's heart skipped a beat. Especially when she heard him mention Jing Yunzhao, she felt even more flustered. Why aren't you saying it? Su Yu lowered his voice and asked. Meijun, you can't be thinking that you can do whatever you want just because I pamper you, right? What kind of woman can I, Su Yu, find? I haven't settled the score with you just now. If you don't tell the truth, do you believe that I won't let you see anyone for the rest of your life? Su Yu said as he rubbed the cigarette, but on Zhou Meijuan's arm. In an instant, the small flame burned a hole in her clothes and touched her delicate skin. Zhou Meijun immediately took a step back, but was pulled back. At this time, she didn't dare to hide it anymore. She quickly said, She's called Jing Yunzhao. She's very beautiful. Is she prettier than you? Su Yu asked with a smile. Yes. Although she didn't want to admit it, she knew that Su Yu would investigate it himself. If he found out that she was lying, she wouldn't have an easy time. She complained in her heart. She thought that she could make a comeback this time. She didn't expect Su Yu to not dare to provoke Professor Mo. He was just a professor. Su Yu was the son of a mayor. How could he be so useless? Su Yu let go. Is that so? I can't do anything to a beautiful woman. What are you standing there for? Take me to have a look. If it's really like what you said, I'll let this matter go. Otherwise, I'll throw you into the wild where there are stray dogs and let you have a good experience. Su Yu's thumb gently stroked the corner of Zhou Meijuan's lips, frivolous and arrogant. Zhou Meijuan's body trembled. When she got close to Su Yu, she heard that people who offended him would be tortured by him in private. There was once a person who was thrown to a stray dog gathering place and was bitten beyond recognition. Su Yu was not a person who knew how to restrain himself. His father had power and influence. Even if he did not help him, there were countless people who indulged him and helped him commit murder. They even used countless methods to keep his secret. He hurriedly responded and led the way. Su Yu's name was very famous, especially in a university. Almost everyone knew him. Wherever he passed, he saw many people calling him Senior Yu, Young Master Yu, or Young Master Su, swaggering through the streets. Jing Yunjiao stood at the classroom window and saw the person he expected to see. Since she had talked to Su Xingyuan, Uncle Su would definitely think of a way. The most direct way was to let Su Yuantek educate his son. Su Yu couldn't get what he wanted, so it was inevitable that he would be angry. This anger would naturally be transferred to her. Zhou Meijun didn't want to see Jing Yunjiao, but she didn't have a choice now. She walked downstairs and glanced up, just in time to see Jing Yunjiao looking downstairs. Even though they were far apart, she was still shocked. Young Master Su, it's the one at the window. Chapter 869. When Su Yu heard this, he looked up and was instantly stunned. Behind the glass was an extremely thin girl in a white shirt and denim pants. She looked very clean and the sunlight shone through the glass, accentuating her beauty. This is Jing Yunjiao? Su Yu snorted softly, but a smile appeared on his face. She was indeed very beautiful, or rather, very elegant. Zhou Meijun nodded. Get away from me. Su Yu raised his eyebrows, his eyes cold as he squeezed these words out of his mouth. Zhou Meijuan's body trembled. She couldn't accept it. She had spent so much effort to get close to him, but in the end, she didn't get anything. She even sacrificed the opportunity to go to another school? Why? Young Master Su, Meijun, look at the one above, and then look at yourself. Do you still think you have the right to stay by my side? With your dignity, I can only reluctantly accept you, but you dare to have so many thoughts. Heh, if you can't learn to be obedient, then you have to accept your fate. I won't settle the losses you made me suffer today, but if you continue to annoy me, then don't blame me for not giving you any leeway in the future. As Su Yu spoke, he threw the cigarette on the floor and extinguished it with his foot. Zhou Meijun instantly fell silent. She knew what her status was, even if she was furious in her heart. Immediately, she left dejectedly. Su Yu took out a piece of chewing gum from his pocket, chewed it a few times, and spat it out. He breathed in and smelled it. The smell was passable, and then he went upstairs. He calculated accurately. Just as the lecturer entered the classroom and was about to start the lesson, he stepped in and walked straight to her. Follow me. He went straight to the point. Up close, Jing Yunjiao was even more good-looking. As soon as Su Yu spoke, everyone in the class fell silent. Some of the students really didn't know him, but after being explained by the people next to them, they immediately understood and obediently shut their mouths. Hua Tianxian frowned and also remembered. When she came to a university, her father had shown her a photo of this boy. He said that he was the mayor's son and was studying here. He also told her that if possible, she should maintain a good relationship with Su Yu. However, she forgot about it after entering the university. Moreover, she didn't like this kind of rich young master. But why was he here? And they even went to Jing Yunjiao? Other than Hua Tianxian, everyone else had different expressions. The class monitor, Han Nan, clenched his fists and looked worried, but he didn't dare to say anything. Su Yu pressed down on the book in front of Jing Yunjiao. Although the lecturer frowned, he did not say anything. The corners of Jing Yunjiao's mouth twitched. It was hard to tell whether he was happy or angry. He looked up and realized that Su Yu looked very similar to the Shenxi that he had found in the information. The only difference was that Su Yu had more masculinity. Why are you looking for me? Jing Yunjiao's voice was still cold. You'll know when you come out with me. You can't expect me to do it in front of so many classmates, right? Su Yu mocked. There's nothing wrong with doing it in front of your classmates. Jing Yunzhao was very direct. When Su Yu heard this, he licked the corner of his lips. You think I don't dare? Jing Yunzhao's eyes were filled with disgust. As the grandson of Elder Su, this Su Yu looked like a good-for-nothing. It was really a waste of Elder Su's character. This son of a bitch didn't learn anything at all. After Su Yu finished speaking, he saw Jing Yunzhao's expression and suddenly became angry. Jing Yunzhao didn't ask who he was, so he must know his name. However, he still looked so fearless. It seemed that he wanted to deliberately provoke him. Thinking of this, he sneered and stretched his neck, wanting to immediately move his head closer. Chapter 870. Su Yu's forceful kiss made everyone's jaws drop. Jing Yunzhao retreated, but Su Yu reached out to grab her waist. Jing Yunzhao's temper flared up instantly. She took the textbook on the table and smashed it directly at his face. Immediately, a red mark appeared. Su Yu felt the pain and restrained himself. But in the next moment, he felt his nose heat up. 2 lines of blood flowed down his nose, dripping down. You dare to hit me? Su Yu looked furious. Hit you? You're the one I'm hitting. Jing Yunzhao snorted coldly. She picked up another book and slapped him on the left and right sides of his face. Su Yu naturally wouldn't just stand there and wait to be hit. He immediately threw out a punch. But just as he stretched out his hand, Jing Yunzhao's palm struck him with extreme pain. It was as if his wrist was about to break. His face was burning with pain. Jing Yunzhao treated it as helping the old man teach his grandson a lesson. She didn't show any mercy. The lecturer who saw this moved to the corner. Clearly, he didn't expect that Jing Yunzhao, who looked so thin and gentle, would be so vicious. However, the lecturer felt a little refreshed. Which teacher in this school didn't know Su Yu? Ever since he started school, he had been on the top of the blacklist. Those teachers who had taught him in the past were all miserable. No one could control him at all. This kind of bullying student who relied on his family background could not be announced because no one dared to report it at all. Even if they did, it would be immediately deleted. Su Yu was dizzy from Jing Yunzhao's slap. Hua Tianxian and the others were dumbfounded. When he stopped, she stepped out from her seat and kicked him in the stomach. Get out. When he looked again, he was already outside the classroom. Su Yu tumbled and rolled on the floor before he finally got up with much difficulty. He immediately wanted to enter the house to settle the score with Jing Yunzhao, but through his swollen eyes, he could see Jing Yunzhao's cold gaze. He retreated backwards and wanted to leave behind some vicious words, but the moment he moved, his cheeks would hurt to the extreme. He might as well just cover his face and leave. Jing Yunzhao actually dared to hit him. In this life, other than his father, no one had ever hit him. As soon as Su Yu left, Jing Yunzhao said, I'm sorry, everyone. I've wasted everyone's time. Teacher, please start the lesson. As he spoke, he sat down and tidied up his things. Everything returned to normal. The students were extremely quiet. Even the teacher looked at Jing Yunzhao with a strange expression. You're awesome. Jing do you know who you just hit? It's Su Yu. I don't even dare to touch that idiot. Hua Tianxian was also shocked. After offending Su Yu, Jing Yunzhao's life was going to be difficult. One had to know that Su Yu had many followers in this school. After all, in a place like University A, there were many rich young masters and young ladies. Many of them were at Su Yu's beck and call in order to curry favor with him. Today, Su Yu suffered a loss. Tomorrow, someone would avenge him. When that time came, Jing Yunzhao might not be able to deal with it. You know him too? Jing Yunzhao asked casually. Oh, of course. My parents are extremely careful people. Ever since I was young, before I went to any school, they would always make a list of the people in the school. Some people can be socialized with, and some people can't be provoked. They were very clear. Hua Tianxian didn't hide anything. She knew that this kind of behavior was snobbish. But with the title of Miss Hua and the good fortune of the Hua family, she also wanted to do what the daughters of the Hua family did. So be it. If one comes, I'll fight one. If two comes, I'll fight two. Even if he gathered the whole school to gang up on me, there's nothing to be afraid of, Jing Yunzhao said faintly. His brows were slightly furrowed, and there was no hint of uncertainty in his eyes. Chapter 871. Jing Yunzhao's heart was filled with anger. Elder Su treated her extremely well, and she also treated the old man as family. Elder Su was such a proud person, yet he actually raised such an unreliable grandson. It was simply an insult to the old man. Hua Tianxian found it strange when she heard her arrogant words. You seem to hate Suyu. What grudge do you have against him? The number of people who went against Jing Yunzhao wasn't small, but the number of people who could make her hate them in her heart wasn't many. There's no grudge. It was the first time we met, Jing Yunzhao said honestly. Celestial Immortal Hua was speechless upon hearing this. Love at first sight and hatred at first sight existed in this world? So you looked a little pitiful after being beaten up by her for the first time. Of course, she wouldn't sympathize with him. Jing Yunzhao was the center of attention during this class. During the lecture, the teacher's gaze landed on Jing Yunzhao more than once. He even found a chance to ask a few more questions. The students' eyes were filled with curiosity. When it was time to end class, almost all of them rushed over and surrounded Jing Yunzhao. Jing Yunzhao, what's your relationship with Suyu? Is it okay for you to beat him up like that? Student A asked curiously. I heard that Suyu's character isn't good. You mustn't go out alone, or it'll be dangerous. Student B was very worried. You're not trying to attract Senior Yu's attention by beating him up like that, right? But I think you should give up. Senior Yu does have a lot of girlfriends, but he's just playing around, someone said with jealousy. The noisy chatter gave Jing Yunzhao a headache. Without saying a word, she squeezed her way out of the crowd. However, just as Jing Yunzhao escaped from the crowd's encirclement, she was once again surrounded by a few girls at the class entrance. There were nearly 10 women in front of him. Each of them was extremely beautiful, especially their figures, which were extremely exquisite and enchanting. Most of them were wearing branded clothes, and their long nails were covered with colorful perfume. Each of them had their own merits, but at this time, when they were mixed together, Jing Yunzhao only felt his nose itch, and he couldn't help but sneeze. The smell was too strong. No matter how good the perfume was, if it was too complicated, it would be no different from a low-quality product. There were some sloppy boys standing behind the women. They didn't look like they were easy to get along with. Are you Jing Yunzhao? The one who attacked young Master Yu just now? One of the women said domineeringly. Her eyes were fierce, as if she wanted to cut Jing Yunzhao from head to toe. You are? Jing Yunzhao had a rough idea in his heart, but he still asked tentatively, You have some guts to actually hit young Master Yu? The woman's attitude was arrogant. She looked at Jing Yunzhao as though she was looking at something dirty. These people were probably the huge harem behind Suyu, right? I've already hit him. What do you want? Jing Yunzhao sighed and glanced at the people around him. Actually, these women were not very old. After all, they were all students of this school. They looked to be in their 20s, but perhaps because they followed Suyu, they looked a little similar. They basically had the same face shape and very similar makeup. It was just that some of them were wearing enchanting and hot clothes, while others were pure and lovely. But no matter which one it was, they all had a strong smell of prostitution. They didn't look like students at all. When a person disregarded her dignity and tried to curry favor with a man for benefits, she was no different from a prostitute. Chapter 872. Jing Yunzhao did not restrain the disdain in his eyes, as if he did not put the people in front of him in his eyes at all. When the women saw this, they became even angrier, and one by one, they moved closer. Junior, you're quite scheming. Do you want to use this method to get young Master Yu's attention? But aren't you looking down on us a little too much? You will soon know the consequences of making a move on young Master Yu. The woman's arrogance was strong. Suyu lost, so he needs you women to vent his anger for him? Is he a child who hasn't been weaned? Jing Yunzhao ridiculed. When the women heard this, they were immediately angry and said without hesitation, Your mouth is so cheap. I think you need to be taught a lesson. As they spoke, they looked at each other and directly pounced. These people didn't know any martial arts at all. The only thing they could do to beat people up was to stretch out their hands and scratch them. The moment their fingers reached out, Jing Yunzhao fiercely pulled and flung them away. She then followed up with a sweep of her leg. Instantly, The surroundings became quiet. However, just when everyone thought that Jing Yuanzhao was about to cry and howl, they heard many muffled groans from the boys. When they looked carefully, everyone was shocked. Jing Yuanzhao's movements were as smooth as moving clouds and flowing water, as if it was a martial arts plot that only existed in TV dramas. The men bravely rushed forward, but were all kicked to the ground in an instant. Even if there was danger behind her, Jing Yuanzhao was completely unconcerned. Her figure was confident and decisive, and was quite handsome. In just a few minutes, there were more than 20 people lying on the ground in the corridor outside the classroom. Men and women, at this time. If they were not holding their arms or stomachs, their faces were bruised and swollen as they looked at Jing Yuanzhao. They simply did not have the strength to fight. After the front was quiet, Jing Yuanzhao stopped, tidied up his clothes, picked up the bag on the ground, and lifted his feet to pass through the crowd. Those who came to find trouble even opened up a path, their eyes filled with fear. If these people were not present at this time, Jing Yuanzhao's classmates would probably not be able to help but applaud and cheer. The men and women who came here added up to more than 20 people, so much so that not even a drop of water could trickle through the corridor. Jing Yuanzhao, on the other hand, had the same expression from start to finish. When she made a move, it was frightening. She suddenly became a martial arts expert. At this moment, the students could not help but recall the scene of the previous military training. Because a few months had passed, they had even forgotten about Jing Yuanzhao's astonishing methods. Now that Jing Yuanzhao had left, these people supported each other and left. It was a strange scene. However, no one dared to film this scene. After all, everyone knew that Jing Yuanzhao's classmates were all from extraordinary backgrounds. If the scene just now was leaked out, no matter if it was Jing Yuanzhao or the person who uploaded it, they would definitely not have a good ending. Not long after, the news of these 20-plus people being beaten up by Jing Yuanzhao reached the dean's ears. If it was a fight between ordinary students, the department would deal with it directly. However, it was different now. The 20-plus people who were beaten up, together with the student council, directly went to the dean and said that Jing Yuanzhao was guilty of evil. Dean, if my dad knew that I was beaten up like this in school, he would definitely be angry. Originally, he was going to donate money to the school to strengthen the teaching staff. I've lived for so long, and my parents have never laid a hand on me. Now that I've been beaten up by Jing Yuanzhao, if Jing Yuanzhao still stays in this school, then I'll ask my dad to come and talk to you personally, Dean. Chapter 873. The dean was so angry that his face turned ashen. He wished he could throw all these troublemakers out, but he couldn't. Although these students were bastards, if he really did that, the school would lose a lot of money. On one hand, the school's research institute wouldn't be able to keep up with the funding. On the other hand, the new building and the financial aid for the poor students would require the help of entrepreneurs. And the parents of these students were them. It wasn't easy to run such a big school. Some places were saved as much as possible in order to bring the greatest help to the students. Although their existence was important, they couldn't mess around. I heard that you guys started it first? If that's the case, there's nothing wrong with Jing Yuanzhao's way of doing things. Even if you really want to deal with it, you guys will definitely be more serious than her. I know your parents are successful people, but this is a school, not a place for you to mess around. If word gets out that so many of you beat up a little girl, I'm afraid your parents won't think what you did was right. I think we should just let this matter go. If your parents come, I'll personally explain it to them. Oh right, this afternoon, Suyu's parents just called and scolded him. They didn't approve of his nonsense. The dean wasn't a fool. In the end, he simply brought up Suyu and Tech. Weren't these students causing trouble to curry favor with Suyu? But if Suyu didn't have a powerful father like Suyu and Tech, they wouldn't be so willing to be his lackeys. Sure enough, the moment Suyu and Tech was mentioned, the group of people's faces turned pale. Dean, what did Mayor Su say? Someone asked tentatively. Let me tell you this. Jing Yuanzhao is a student personally accepted by Professor Mo. You can imagine how close their relationship is. Professor Mo and Mayor Su's grandfather are best friends. The reason why Mayor Su called today was because of Professor Mo. This is under the condition that Professor Mo didn't complain. If you guys hurt Jing Yunjiao and Professor Imo really gets angry and finds trouble with Mayor Su, the unlucky ones will be Su Yu and you guys. The dean looked at them sympathetically, as if they had already caused trouble. This attitude caused these people to panic for a moment. They had a good relationship with Su Yu, so they naturally knew the situation of Su Yu's family. Su Yu was usually lawless, but if he crossed the line and Su Yuantech found out, the result would be miserable. It was said that Su Yu was sent to the juvenile detention center by his own father once and was beaten to the point of almost dying. There was even one time when his father locked him up at home without food or water for 3 days and almost killed him. Most of those inhumane punishments were because Su Yu had gone too far, but some of them were also because of the unfathomable old man of the Su family. Su Yu had once made an evaluation of that grandfather, and that was that the grandfather and grandson had no feelings to speak of. If it wasn't for the bad relationship between the old master and Su Yuantech, he probably wouldn't have been able to tolerate it and would have thought of a way to send his grandson back to be reincarnated. Thinking up to this point, they didn't say anything else and left the dean's office one by one. Let's just wait and see what happens between Su Yu and Jing Yunjiao. Don't worry about it, one of them said. I think so too. Su Yu has suffered such a serious injury, and if Mayor Su doesn't intervene after he returns, then it proves that Jing Yunjiao really isn't someone to be trifled with. If he intervenes, then it won't be too late for us to help. Otherwise, what if we have to take the blame? Another person immediately agreed. With that said, the few of them nodded in tacit understanding. They were friends with Su Yu for the sake of benefits, not to cause trouble for themselves. If they didn't get any benefits in the end and were resented by Mayor Su, then wouldn't they suffer a double loss? Chapter 874. After they reached a consensus, they went to the hospital to visit Su Yu. In fact, Su Yu only had external injuries. His face was swollen like a bun, and his stomach was bruised from Jing Yunjiao's kick. Other than that, there were no other problems. When these people arrived, they were very restrained and did not mention Jing Yunjiao's name. You're injured too? That little bitch. Su Yu gritted his teeth and immediately sucked in a breath of cold air. He was in so much pain that he grimaced. The few of them looked at each other. After a while, a rich lady walked in from outside the door. When they saw her, they immediately greeted her and retreated. She saw her son's current appearance and immediately felt extremely distressed. How did you end up like this? Who hit you? She was furious. Although her voice was cold, she still maintained her upbringing and temperament. Mom, be gentler. It hurts. Su Yu's mouth was small, and he said through his teeth, it was a little girl who hit me. She probably wanted to attract my attention. You child, didn't I teach you before? If you want to interact with those uneducated wild girls, the future daughter-in-law of the Su family must be of equal social status. What if those dirty girls lead you astray? Shunxi's voice was soft. There was no one else in the ward, so she did not restrain herself. Su Yu was not surprised. Mom, it's different. This girl is very beautiful. Besides, it's just for fun. I'm not planning to make her our daughter-in-law. Oh right, didn't you tell Dad that I was in the hospital? Why didn't he come? I did. I don't know why he... Before he finished speaking, 2 burly men suddenly appeared in front of him. Su Yuantech walked in, and without saying anything, he ordered the 2 men to carry Su Yu out. Dad, what are you doing? Yuanza, our son is injured. Shunxi was anxious and quickly grabbed Su Yuantech's arm. Su Yuantech glanced at her coldly and threw her out. A loving mother leads to a useless son. I think the punishment last time was too light. That's why he didn't learn his lesson. I've already arranged for someone to send him to Heizhou to gain experience. If he comes back alive, we'll forget about this matter. But if he dies, we'll take it that he's not part of the Su family. Su Yuantech was furious. He wished he could strangle his son to death. He was not a kind person himself, but he only targeted his enemies. He would never act recklessly. Over the years, he had indeed killed many people, but he could say that all of them deserved to die. Killing one person could save countless innocent people, but what did his son do? He knew how to bully others since he was in elementary school. When he was in his teens, he began to harm other people's daughters. He didn't listen to reason, and his mistakes became more and more serious. At noon today, he called the dean. In the afternoon, the dean told him that Su Yu had failed to force himself on a female student and had been beaten. He had even arranged for dozens of people to surround the girl. Heh! In school, in front of the teachers and the dean, he even dared to commit such a violent act. His guts were getting bigger and bigger. If this continued, sooner or later, Su Yuan's reputation would be completely tarnished by this bastard. At this time, when she heard that Su Yuantech was going to send Su Yu to Heizhou, she was suddenly dumbfounded. Yuanza, what did you do wrong? Can't we talk to him nicely? Yu is smart. He will know his mistakes and change. Know his mistakes and change? Su Yuantech's eyes were gloomy, and he stared coldly at Shun Shi. I know in my heart whether he can change or not. Shun Shi suddenly felt like she was in an ice cellar. Even after more than 20 years, every time she saw Su Yuantech like this, she was still scared, terrified. Chapter 875. Shun Shi's hands and feet were cold. She was so scared that she didn't dare to make a sound. When she came to her senses, her son had already been dragged out. She immediately rushed over. Yuanza, don't be like this, okay? Yu is my only child. If anything happens to him, I don't want to live anymore. You promised me that you would let me take care of my son for the rest of my life. Now you're sending Yu to such a dangerous place. You're asking for my life. Shun Shi quickly cried. Although Shun Shi was also old, she took good care of herself. She looked very kind and gentle. At this moment, her crying made Su Yuantech look even more ferocious. Su Yuantech's expression was ugly. When the accident happened, he had two choices. One was to marry Shun Shi. The other was to give Shun Shi a sum of money as compensation and write off everything. He originally chose the second choice. At that time, he didn't have any thoughts of starting a family. Even if he wanted to marry, he would marry someone he liked. As for Shun Shi, she was indeed good-looking, but she wasn't the type that he liked. Therefore, he gave her a sum of money and let her do what she wanted. Shun Shi was very obedient. She left obediently and didn't pose any threat. However, 2 months later, she appeared again with a child. There was nothing suspicious about her. After she left that year, he sent people to secretly monitor her. The main reason was that he was afraid that she would collude with his political enemies. However, in these 2 months, she stayed at home. She didn't go anywhere except to buy groceries and cook. After all, he was a man. Shun Shi was pregnant, so he had no choice but to marry her. However, he also asked for her opinion. Shun Shi was anxious and said that she only wanted to raise the child. She didn't want him to do anything else. After all, it was just a formality. He also promised that she would enjoy all the benefits that a daughter-in-law of the Su family should have and that he wouldn't abandon her. For so many years, it had been as promised. Shun Shi took care of the housework for him and attended various events. He gave Shun Shi enough money and face. However, when it came to children, it was a headache. So you couldn't learn it at all. The bad habits in his body were like a seed. As the years passed, they would take root and sprout little by little, growing more and more luxuriant. As a father, he had taught Su Yu dutifully, but the problem was that Su Yu was stubborn, and the more he taught him, the worse he became. Our Su family can't have such a good-for-nothing. He's the eldest grandson of the eldest son, and he's a disgrace to the Su family. If he did something wrong, it would be a disgrace to the old master and me. If the Su family was just an ordinary wealthy family, it would be fine, but the Su family has a 1,000-year-old tradition of making medicine. Firstly, he doesn't know how to make medicine, and secondly, he has no moral character. If he continues to cause trouble, he'll be letting down the Su family's ancestral teachings. Su Yuantech said coldly. He gave the 2 burly men a look, and they immediately took him away. A car had been prepared at the entrance, and even a private jet had been prepared. With people escorting him along the way, even if Su Yu had wings, he wouldn't be able to fly away. Su Yuantech's words weren't without reason. The Su family and the Su family were of the same bloodline. They both had the same ancestor. The Jing family studied medicine, while the Su family studied medicine. They had been close for many years, and their ancestral teachings were exactly the same. The two families' ancestral teachings were strict. If a descendant's character wasn't good and didn't change, he would be removed from the family. Both the Su and Jing families had their own ancestral temples in various places. However, the main bloodline was in the capital. It was just that in this day and age, the matter of removing descendants from the family tree wasn't as important as in ancient times. Su Yuantek wouldn't have been so angry if Su Yu was just a mediocre talent. However, the problem was that his character was too bad. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.